Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, he's in the Venari with me, and I always make sure our bases are touching. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
I don't even know how to react to that one. I gotcha!
No, you did. Indeed, our bases are touching.
Indeed. But of course, you can't make a shield wall alone. No, no. You've got to have at least two other models touching your bases. So today, Tom, we've brought in a third, and that is Mr. Martin Orlando, Mr. Good Painter, previously Good Painter Stormcast Man, now Good Painter Elf Man. Back to your original love. What's up, Martin? How you doing, buddy?
Hello, and thank you for having me on. It's definitely an honor.
Absolutely. You've been more jazzed, more of a stand for this army for longer than anybody I know. I mean, there's other people out there. Bryce is another one who's a super big fan of it. There are people but you are part of an elite cadre of people who, from the moment this was first revealed, and perhaps even when it was just a whiff of an idea in the floating through the aether, were all about it and knew you were all in on it and have wavered not a bit.
Yeah, I have been waiting for this since basically the destruction of the old world because I had a feeling it's like they might revisit it, and then the clues started to go out there. I was like the Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of conspiracy board, just quietly like putting clues on the wall, waiting for the time to be right, and finally the door to Heish opened, and the Lumineth came forth.
There you go.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been waiting on High Aelves since 8th as well. It's just I've experienced it differently.
Sure. Well, that's that, and that's the whole point. We've got a
Yeah.
whole range of
Yeah.
opinions here. That's what I thought this would be a great show to balance it out because we have two people who are probably going to play the army in both you and Martin, people who came about their interest in the army very differently and are approaching it very differently, and me who is dispassionate and couldn't care less about elves, has always hated them, will always hate them, and continues to not be very much in their camp, and frankly, yeah, think that there's just generally. I consider myself much like what's his the eventual what'll be the bad guy in the next Doctor Strange movie. I figured out the problem with the world. There are too many sorcerers in it, or in this case, too many wizards, as we'll talk about in this army. So
I mean, it's okay. Some people watch Lord of the Rings, and when they get to Rivendell, and some people are just like, "What a bunch of pompous buttheads." It's okay. It's not for everybody. We understand.
Yeah, but there's no. Okay, sorry. Yes, let's jump right in.
sure.
Yes.
At any rate, let's begin with the
News.
news. Yes, that's where we
News.
start. That's where we start this show.
Yeah. Rumor engine.
It's up on the screen. It's a 40K thing.
It's a Chaos Space Marine thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, maybe it might be a Nurgle thing.
Can I say a thing because
Please,
Games
yeah.
Workshop likes to put its assets throughout like certain ranges. I believe it was Shadow Claimer on Twitter who pointed out that the little sort of like the ribbing or cable exposed under the fleshy bits match the Chaos Champion that's in the Blackstone Fortress core set. So that leads me to believe that it's probably a Chaos Marine thing.
Sure.
And there have been a few other rumor engines of Chaos Space Marine things of late, which haven't correlated to a release yet. So it makes sense that if they're doing a new edition of 40K, Chaos Space Marines are probably not far like behind on that sort of design like release schedule.
Yeah, the same
Yeah.
sort of tubing with the ribbing underneath, by the way, is also present in Death Guard, which are a particular type of Chaos Space Marines.
Right.
I again, not saying that this is Death Guard. I'm saying that they do tend to use that tubing over ribbing
Yes.
amongst many different types of Chaos
Right.
Space Marines.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and the look of stretched flesh and yada yada yada. Like, yep, it's a Chaos Space Marine thing.
Probably. I've seen similar things in Nurgle models, both 40K and not. That's
Sure.
what I will.
I will just say, if this turns out to be an AOS one, I would be so surprised. Like, that would truly blow my mind. But my money would strongly be on Chaos Space Marine. But whoever knows with
Sure.
these things. It's neat. Looks like it's going to be a neat thing. Maybe like their new jump pack troop. That's what it would seem to be. Like a new
Be
Chaos
sweet.
jump pack troop. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Great. All right, what else we got?
GHB. Surprise!
Comes out this weekend. It's been leaks galore all week. Leaks and leaks and leaks. It's like somebody just took a
They made a new
screwdriver to this
Sylvaneth
rusty
army.
pipe.
Yeah.
What's that?
New Sylvaneth army. Leaks everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So thoughts so far
I'm-
from what you guys have seen?
Sure.
I'm
Martin,
interested
start
to
us
see
out.
the scenarios.
Sure.
Yeah, the mechanics for building your own hero looks fun, especially for narrative games. I'm kind of excited about that.
I mean, let's be
I have a
honest. It
game
should all just be part of match play right now. We're going to talk about it we'll probably talk about the Anvil in 2 weeks. We are going to talk the GHB next week, but we're going to split the GHB over a couple of weeks. We're going to do the hard points and match play stuff next week, and then we'll do the narrative stuff the week after. So since technically the Anvil is in the narrative section, it'll probably come up in the second week. It is the thing I am most excited for in the book, and I think it should be part of match play, and I think it should be part of tournaments. I think it will need to have fixes. Already I can see weak spots where it's just clearly not correct. My guess was there would be 3 broken things in it, just straight up broken. I've already seen 3, which makes me think I might have undershot slightly, but we'll get there.
Nice. I haven't dug too deeply into it. I've been paying attention to points leaks. A list was floating around with some new KO points.
Whether or not they're real, because those are PDF points, so who knows?
Right. So I'm trying not to believe those. But if they are real,
then you made out okay in this GHB.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have very playable armies on the other side of this GHB if that's the case.
Sure.
So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where they land.
I'm no matter what, I have a game scheduled for Saturday, so I'm going to be testing the GHB the day it lands. I'm interested to see how I want to see what one of those newer scenarios looks like and how that can play out, especially since I have a brand new army to test it out with. So I'm definitely looking forward to how that will change the lists I already have floating around for the Lumineth I have planned.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, for me, this. But here's my short pre-review before we talk next week. This looks like all the best technology that November 2019 could bring us. So I'm excited about it.
Sure.
Yep. Cool. Okay. But at any rate, that's not what we're here to talk about this week. This week we're here to talk about Dem Elves. But before we get there, let's talk about some pick of the week. Martin, what would you like to share with everybody?
My pick of the week is Naomi from Sword and Steel. Won the clickbait game with her YouTube thumbnail. She had a chainsaw just to some wood in her workstation. She made this whole frame for because people were like, well, what do I do for 40K? Because they changed the board size for 2,000 points match play, and so she made this whole frame that fits around on your existing rolling game mats to cover all of the empty space except for the 44x60. She goes through how she made it, all of the plans, easy ways to do it with just like some bare bones power tools, stuff like that. And as it's looking like we could be going that way for Age of Sigmar in the next edition of the game, whenever that may be, whether it's next year or 2 to 3 years after that. I think it's useful just to have it's a good video, funny thumbnail, good job. I really appreciated that.
Nice. Dig it. Tommy, what do you got?
Yeah, I want to spruik the Animosity 2 narrative campaign event thing is launching on July 22nd. They have a website and they have like a full-on video trailer and all that stuff. So I'm going to encourage y'all to check it out. As they said, it's the original socially distanced Warhammer campaign.
Nice.
And they have all the details for that in its launch. So I'm going to encourage people to check that out. Maybe try to participate.
Nice. For myself, I will cheat again because I have lots of things. 2 things. First off, I was a good friend of mine, Michael Dutcher, who interviewed me for his podcast, Listening to Paint Dry. And I'll link it down in the description. It was a fun discussion about painting and the hobby journey and that kind of stuff. So you can go check that out. I'll link that down below. It's part of the larger show, and that is, say, the interview is part of the larger show. And and I just wanted to also say that tomorrow I'll be on Rob on the Honest Wargamer on Rob's show for his stream streak, and we're going to talk about why the removal of realm artifacts in the way that it was executed was a terrible mistake, and discuss inter-army parity. So we'll be talking about those two things for this.
Yeah, what you're saying that ogres didn't come out real hot in the shakeout here?
Well, I mean, there are many armies that are going to get double whammied by this. Yeah. I'm not going to look. This isn't the week to talk about it. I'll talk about Slaanesh next week. But let me just say, we're ready to be at the bottom of the barrel again. It's fine. We're ready to be the powerest of power bottoms. So check that out. It should be a fun discussion. It's always great to hang out with Rob. So that'll be tomorrow for his stream streak day. 110, 111 probably. Who knows? I don't know how many days he's been doing this. Forever, I guess. Just there is no time when Rob hasn't been doing the stream streak. That's it. That's all he ever does. Okay. So, let's talk about some hobby time. Yeah, man. This hobby still happens. The hobby is life. Martin, as if I have to ask, what have you been working on? He said.
No, I got right to work, cracking open my Lumineth Realm Lords box, eager to just work on all of the kits. But I've been taking my time to try and ensure that the army is as good as I can make it, learning new things. Like I started even before the box came out. I had developed some test models, and like I have a paint plan about 2.5 pages long, front and back. And I'm just tweaking it as I work on the Spearman. You can check it out on my Twitter. Just type my name into Twitter or CV_consigliere, and you can see all of the Lumineth Spearmen. And coming up next will be, I made my own Cathalar, scratch built her out of like 5 different kits. And then the Dawn Riders I will be working on after I finish 10 Spearmen.
Nice. One thing I will say is, you've got to respect the work, Martin, that you have put into these guys, and your planning and your processing for them. I think they're coming along really nicely. So,
thank you very much.
Good looking stuff. Tommy, what about you, buddy? What's on your desk?
Not a lot, honestly. I've been doing a lot of just prep for the D&D marathon we have this weekend, and so I haven't been painting much at all.
That's okay. As long as you're that, and as I can see over your left shoulder, the giant boxes of Magic cards that you have back there, I'm sure have been taking up some time. Other shoulders.
I don't know. Those aren't mine. I don't know what you're talking about.
Other shoulders.
Like, those are legitimately are not mine.
That's fine. That's fine. We believe you. It's okay. All right. So, it's good. The important thing to focus on right now is the marathon, Tom. That's what matters. So for myself, I have been working on my display board. That is the simple answer. It continues to be this endless, ridiculous project that is going to swallow my soul. I don't remember a time before it anymore. But it continues. And Tom has seen a little bit of it. So there you go. I said, Tom, you've seen a little bit of the display board.
Oh man, it's beautiful.
So We'll see. Some of it's right there. It's all right off camera, but there we go. All right, gentlemen, let's talk Lumineth, shall we?
That's great.
Okay, so let's start with the overall high level opinion take on these guys. Let's get the hot. Scalding hot takes. Here we go. High level view. What do you think about him? Martin, start us off. I mean, obviously you're a stan. We know that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You can talk, I mean everything. Like, are you happy with how the lore turned out, with the rules?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the level of work, love, and addition. Like, it feels like a great blend of nostalgia, reinvention, and addition, as I said on Twitter. because you can see where there's the nostalgia for the old, reinventing what was once beloved but felt kind of dated. That came with a lot of like the older like just some of the stuff that was in High Elves up until the end times, like some of those kits and some of that art just did not age well. And they wanted to keep some of those elements, but they had to just transform how they appeared in the new format that is Age of Sigmar. And just some of the stuff that we will get into later is just, it can't just be Rivendell but bigger. There has to be new stuff. This is Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar expects a certain level of craziness and creativity, and I appreciate how all of that was blended together to create this book.
All right, right on. Tom, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I think that it feels like Fire Slayers 2.0, if I want to be honest.
Okay.
It feels
you're gonna
like
have to unpack that take.
Yeah. So, and what I mean by that is you have a highly elite army that is in general low model count, in general low mobility. But it feels like a lot of the rough edges have been like sanded off. And so what I mean by that is like for Fire Slayers, you have only three real non-hero units. Here you have 4, and you actually have like the 4th unit that you actually need, which is the
Are the horsies your 4th unit in your mind? Is that the thing? Like that's what the Fire Slayers don't have, right? You've got the three different types of sort of foot infantry you'd imagine, but then you've also got the horsies to supplement.
Yep. And so that's exactly right. And so it does exactly what's needed basically.
Okay. All right.
And so that's like super helpful.
I really appreciate the intricate synergies they've added to make this book feel adaptable despite the smaller amount of kits, especially for like a launch faction that went in here. Like I have yet to see 2 lists even in the most competitive of WhatsApp groups where they just throw lists at the wall to see what sticks and who can get in the most TTS games right now with what. And they all look different. They all look creative. I am definitely liking the internal balance in this book. Minus 1 or 2 things is brilliant, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. My spicy take on this army at a 40,000 foot view is it's a very nice looking army that I feel, despite all the original cow jokes, actually does pretty interestingly recreate a lot of the high elf range in a fairly functional way. The army will often be centered and built around what would be truly the makings of a classic high elf army: spearmen, archers, some horse riders on the flank, a couple of foot type heroes, and then there will be. Then of course you have some weirdness that also is great. It's good to have that diversity where you might also have a sort of Ymetrica type force that's much more like cow-headed dudes swinging in with giant hammers. And right. I appreciate that actually both of those seem quite viable. I agree with Martin that I think the internal balance is actually pretty strong. I think a good stance of that is that most of these sub-factions, as we'll talk about here in a little while, actually feel quite playable. And feel quite, okay, that's one I could see building an army around, and that's one I could see building an army around. And that, you get my point. Anytime that's happening, that tells me that we're onto a pretty good internal balance. There's no Gristlegore here. There's no Hagnar here, which is great. And so that is a absolute positive. There is some very, very, very high potential for some NPE in this army, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go through. By the way, I don't mean that's in every army. Please don't misunderstand me or mistake me saying that I think playing these elves is immediate NPE, negative play experience. I'll actually unpack that for a second. Yeah. I am saying that this army does absolutely have the potential for that. But it might not manifest, as we'll see. We'll see. It depends on a lot on what the builds are, I think, and what actually becomes viable. Because some of the NPE could get quite shortcutted, for example, if Teclis is a trap and never shows up in lists, then you won't see many of the NPE elements because they themselves become a trap for you as the player. Whereas if Teclis is viable, the world looks very different. So we'll have some discussion on Mr. Floating cross stance hanging out in front of his cat sphinx friend, also known as truly the strangest model they've sculpted in a long time. Okay. So, let's get into some specifics. Where shall we start here? Martin, like, do you want to start on any of the... But before we get into the rules, is there any particular lore elements? And by the way, I see 2+ Tough is in the chat. And let's be honest, if you want the hottest of hot lore coverage, he's doing a Lumineth Realm Lords week. So you should just be over there watching his stuff after this. I mean, that's where you're going to get the hot lore takes and all the deep info. But Martin, is there anything that grabbed you? And Tom, I'm coming to you with the same question in just a moment.
Like, I mean, since we're here, we might as well talk about how there's a lot of...
Go ahead. You're fine, man. Keep going. He's just talking to his kid.
Yeah. I really appreciate, because it's like the cow thing hung over us for a while because we didn't have any rules to talk about.
Sure.
So like it was memes abound. Just like in OBR, you had the thing with skeletons with noses and the Joker face.
Sure.
But like I think as the more we got into the minutia, we had this whole thing with I think we're getting a little bit of like that Pan Asia Avatar Last Airbender vibe. And Avalanor really feels like sort of this lion turtle-esque figure. I really like how it goes into how almost like Eldar Aspect Warriors, where if you go down the path of a particular element, you take on, like, you become one with the nature and the spirit of that element.
Mm-hmm.
And like the special rules the cows have, where it's like they can pass on like this mystic wisdom to the sages that worship them and stuff like that, where if you take their advice, like you don't have to spend command points to use your command abilities and stuff like that. And I definitely got that mystic lion turtle-esque vibe out of Avalanor and the spirits of the mountain.
Do both of you feel like they set up well for the inevitable expansion? I mean, clearly when you've got these sort of 8 great nations and we got 4 of them here, they're pretty much directly telling you, hey, in the future we'll do part 2 with Tyrion at some time. Do you feel like that was properly set up in the lore of the book?
Tom?
In the lore of the book, yes. I think that, my challenge is that it feels like there are holes.
Okay.
Like there feels like there are real holes in the army, and I feel that in list building and in everything else. And so I really struggle with that aspect of it.
Gotcha. So you feel like because we're effectively getting kind of half of the great nations here, right? Like we know there's 4 other great nations that we talk about them, the Teklian and the Tyranic nations, right?
Yep.
You feel like you because we're feeling that in the model range as well, like that is actually something that you feel when you're looking at it.
I do. And I can even see it in like a lot of the items that are like melee focused, and you can only put them on like mages. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. We will definitely talk about that. All right, cool. No, I don't have much of a fresh take on it, except to say that I thought they did a neat job of expanding this realm we hadn't seen much into, and explaining the sort of people that live there and how the elves are working. I like the history of it. It does feel like there's echoes to the same cycles that the elves have been in before, but the elves are a cyclical people. Like
it also, if I may add one thing, sorry,
please.
It feels like a reimagined Ulthuan, where 8 of like the nations, even the ones in this book, like have clear callbacks to one of the 10 nations of Ulthuan back then. Like they're not going to be 1-to-1. It's not going to be like, oh, this is clearly this. They just carry over various tropes and aesthetic elements or like cultural elements from that. So you feel like in a way that does make sense from a narrative perspective, that Teclis would try and remake like his people in an image that he remembers fondly and has his own nostalgia for. And I think the writer is trying to do service to what was for the fans. So I can definitely see like in the future we might see elements of Kalador or Tiranac or Nagaroth or Cathik, where Tyrion is actually born in the future, like expansions of this army.
Yeah. So instead of wrestling lions or surviving fire, there's kind of endurance trials, right? Which would have been old Ulthuan. Now you're going up a mountain and fasting and surviving the elements and those kinds of things, right? And becoming one with the mountain spirit. It's still an endurance trial that's supposed to like hone together your soul and your body into sort of one, sharpened, more complete being type of thing, right? So, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that those thematic through lines, not the specifics, because the details are irrelevant. Those were the nature of when they lived in that place. But the thematic elements, I absolutely agree. There is the callbacks very strongly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. Well, gentlemen, shall we get into some crunchy rules bits then?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Great. So let's start at the beginning. Where all things start, I suppose. Right. And let's talk about just some basic allegiance abilities. Most of these have already been out there. They've been spoiled many times, so we won't go super deep detail, but we'll talk them through. So we've got our Aether Quartz Reserve. We'll also call out the potential FAQs as they go. So, and I say that because there's an interesting one that Tom mentioned right here that's absolutely clearly showing what they're intended in the rules.
Right.
But it's like they didn't actually write it. So. Right. But I mean, I don't think it's actually going to cause confusion. We'll all play it the right way. Right. At any rate, Aether Quartz Reserve. So each unit in a Realm Lords army starts with one Aether Quartz Reserve. The initial comparison everybody makes is 2KO and Aether Gold, right? Because ships and units of 10 or more in that army start with Aether Gold. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it's everybody. I guess there's more Aether Quartz to go around than there is Aether Gold. So there you go. But the unit can use basically at certain trigger points once per phase. Mm-hmm. One unit can use its Aether Quartz Reserve to do one of the following. The key initial point of the FAQ here, and yes, it's being pedantic. Please don't jump down my throat. We're just saying what it is.
Sorry, I call it.
Yeah, this is Tom's fault, but here it is. Nowhere in this paragraph do they use the word spend.
Right.
Your Aether Quartz. They just say you use it, which seems to imply, like, obviously that wouldn't make any sense. Everybody's treating it like a once-a-game resource. That, in other words, like, you use your Aether Quartz and it's gone. You get a Benny and then you take a -1 bravery. But nowhere in that paragraph does it actually say you spend it in the same way that it talks about Aether Gold, where it says you spend it. And we, like, clearly the word spend has the implication that it's gone. We all understand that when we go spend money, the money's not in our wallet anymore. So it's not actually super, like, it is clear that their intention is to make this once-a-game effects that they can spend their quartz on. The wording is not actually that.
Right.
But we can all understand the rules per as intended. Unless anybody else is thinking these things are literally infinite and you can just have the same unit bang its Aether Quartz once per phase for the entire game. So there you go. Which I don't think so.
And it's still only one unit per phase can use it unless you're CR.
Correct. That's right. That's right. One unit once per phase. I'll read the exact text. Everybody ready? Here we go. We'll remove all doubt. Once per phase, you can say that one unit will use its Aether Quartz Reserve to use one of the following Aether Quartz Reserve abilities. There you go. That is the exact text. Okay? And so clearly it seems to be intended to be once that, like, otherwise you wouldn't have a number. You wouldn't start with a number 1 of Aether Quartz because it literally would be irrelevant if it didn't get exhausted as a resource. If it wasn't a potion thing, right? Like they clearly intended it to be a once a game resource, but that's not actually how it's worded. Is anybody, Martin? I'm not misreading this, right? You're not coming to the show being like, no, my wardens can use their Aether Quartz once, every combat phase, every round, right?
I sent in 4 FAQ questions. This was not one of them.
Sure. And so I think we're all on the page. Everybody's talked about it as a once per game effect. It just doesn't actually clearly delineate that. I think we all actually understand. And yes, you do suffer -1 bravery unless you've got a Cathalar around, which we'll talk about in a moment. The things you can do with this Aether Quartz. Well, okay, so we've talked about using it. What can you do? Well, there's a couple different things to do. You can say that they'll use this ability when picked to be the target of an attack, where they and in response to that you can get +1 saves. You can use that when they're picked to shoot or fight, and you can get +1 to hit. You can use it after it has attempted to cast a spell, but before any unbinding rolls are made for that spell. If you do so, you can add 1 to the casting roll or re-roll that casting roll. And you can use Magical Insight. You can say that a unit will use this ability at the start of your hero phase. If you do so, that unit can attempt to cast 1 extra spell that phase. So there you go. That's what those are the uses. Good stuff. I mean, like, those are super good buffs.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think any of us are going to complain about that. Martin,
No.
you've got some test games in. How much have you been finding the Aether Quartz mattering in your games?
I do appreciate more of the defensive stuff than adding +1 to hit, because most of the time I think the strength of Venari units is in their sun metal weapons, and those are unmodified dice rolls. So Aether Quartz is not going to help you fish for those dice rolls. So I think it's definitely a good balancing measure that way, where like I could have +2 to hit. I'm still only doing mortal wounds on 6s or 5s if the spell goes off. So I think I gravitate more towards the +1. I +1 save the most. Magical boost, like if you're in Zytrek, I can't imagine you ever using this. Or rather, not having a reason to, because of the other buffs to your own casting you already have.
Sure.
But yeah, I do appreciate the design tech where a lot of these abilities won't help you get the most egregious effects out of your units, because that can lead to a lot of negative play experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to truncate the actual like red flag items or abilities for later. It's like no one likes where it's like, oh, this unit of 10 models just did 7 mortal wounds because I just buffed them to crazy stuff, and across the table 2 of your heroes die. So I do appreciate, it's like, because you can get like stacking Aether Quartz with other things in this book, battalions and whatnot. It can get pretty crazy, like hitting on 2s, possibly rerolling 1s, but it won't help you get any extra mortal wounds.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any other thoughts on our Aether Quartz reserve?
I think that it is a mechanic that you have to use wisely.
Sure.
And I think that it will, when used correctly, I think it will really turn the tide.
Yeah, I think it's a huge lever. And let's be honest, the +1 to save, I think, is when you talk about like just actual effects that are going to have on the game, that's the big one, especially for reasons we'll talk about in a little while, where these things can start stacking together to just make units very, 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 very tanky. Very tanky.
Yep.
For an army of seemingly made of paper elves, this army can turn on some very hardcore tanking.
Yeah.
And then hit back super hard.
Yep.
The OBR will be jealous when all is said and done. Okay, so then you've got an ability called Absorb Despair. It's for the Cathalar. I'm not going to read the whole text. Effectively, when Aether Quartz, so they can absorb the bravery hit and then give it to an enemy unit. Okay, we'll talk about, and because they play with bravery penalties and pass those things around, we'll talk about that later with the Cathalar itself. It's a fairly minimal-ish ability. It's not the biggest deal in the world, because you can't like stack those negatives you pass on to other units. You can only give a single unit a -1 one time. But okay, it's a thing. I don't like. This feels like an extra rule that didn't need to be there. I'm going to be completely honest. I get it. I get why it's there. I get the whole thing we're playing with. It just feels like it should have been part of that war scroll and not somewhere.
I was about to say that. Like I don't understand why why a war scroll ability is in the allegiance abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because even if you put this, like, oftentimes you move things off of scrolls and into allegiance if you're worried about them as an ally, right? That's when you do it. This would have zero effect with this person as an ally. right? It literally has no. In another army, it would do nothing if it was printed on the scroll.
Yep.
So, okay, whatever. They have lightning reactions, which we saw forever and ever ago. And the and obviously that what that is when you get to pick to fight, you can pick 2 units to fight. So you can't jump the order and fight in the start of the phase or something like that. But when it's your turn to fight, say it's not your turn, and the enemy charges you, they get to fight with their first unit as normal, but then you get to fight with 2 back. Interestingly, the designer's note here is what's fascinating to me, clarifying seemingly something that's been kind of floating around for a long time, but at least the way Nico thought about it. And that was, this ability only applies to units that fight during the combat phase. Therefore, it cannot be used for units that fight at the start or the end of the combat phase, or for units that fight in any phase other than the combat phase. What's interesting there is that they've officially put the terms in the clearest way I've ever seen, that during is not the start or the end.
Yeah. No, it is actually a really big deal, and we talked about this in chat. Because what it says is that anything that says during doesn't, like, now all abilities need to be reviewed and confirmed whether they work or not.
Yeah, I'll give you an easy example. Like, I just so because people might be going, I don't know what you're talking about, Tom. That doesn't make any sense. I'll give you a very specific but real example. Okay. The Lurid Haze Invaders, like Slanesh subfaction. Okay. Out of Wrath of the Everchosen. This is just right off the top of my head since I play this, but there are many others like this. Has a thing that says during the combat phase, you can use this command ability to give +1 to save.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you're fine, Martin. That you can give +1 to save. Okay. What that would mean is that if your model gets attacked in the start of the phase, you cannot activate that ability to get the +1. You have to wait to, like, the normal phase, as it were, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, interesting stuff. Somebody said, when do Nighthaunt fight when they roll a 10+ to charge? They fight in the charge phase when they do that. They fight immediately upon completing the charge. So, yes, I mean, like, it wouldn't matter there because you don't fight back in the charge phase anyways. But notably, the good things about that is that, obviously, you're not in the combat phase at all.
Right.
However, it should be noted that your Aether Quartz Reserve of Heightened Reflexes could still be activated, because its trigger is only when you are picked to be the target of an enemy attack. So even if Nighthaunt get their 10+, slot machine charge fight, you can still heighten reflex that. So, yep. Dustin E said, I swear that the rules FAQ once said things that happen at the start and the end phase are considered to take place during that phase. You would not be wrong. There was a previous decision that discussed that, and that is clearly not the case as has been stated here. So yes, this does. I don't want to get deep into this weird FAQ rule minutia because it usually won't matter, right?
Yeah. But do we need another PowerPoint?
No, I mean, yes. Like this is another PowerPoint presentation on its own, right? Because yes, there have been previous discussions that didn't seem to agree with this designer's note. So. Cool. And then, of course, they have Great Nations, which we'll talk about. As we said, it has 4. So, I don't think it'll matter very much, but it does bring up... It's more like what this designer's note implies has implications to a ton of other stuff that I don't care to have implications to. So, there we go. All right, cool. I want to go next to the Great Nations. I think that's actually the most logical place to go next to start this conversation, because... But before we get into that, I want to talk about a fundamental oddity of this army that I want you both to opine on. Okay. And that is this: the next pages. Obviously, there are 2 special abilities, one for Venari, one for Alarith. We'll talk about those as we go, or whatever, when we get to the things. But the Venari being the shield wall thing we've already seen, where if they stand really close together and they all touch bases, they get -1 to be hit. And they can only do it during setup. And if they break it, it's broken. And the Alarith of Tectonic Force and Enduring as a Rock, where they turn Rend -1 into Rend nothing. and Tectonic Force, where they cause you to immediately get a slow play violation by triggering a really annoying non-beneficial effect that allows your enemy to get 2/3 of a pile-in move and surround you more and take tons and tons of time in a phase that shouldn't have this precise of a level of movement happening a second or third time. I am really anti-Tectonic Force. I don't know how deep we want to get into it. We can talk about it later if we want, but I think Tectonic Force is one of the worst rules they've ever written. That's straight up. I don't mean like bad, like overpowered. Who cares about that? I don't care about anything like that. Overpowered stuff is just overpowered stuff. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just literally a bad rule. It is a badly designed, badly initiated, badly executed rule that does not actually do what it sets about to do. The shield push from 300. It in fact does the opposite of that for the most part, and takes forever.
There's a better version of it in Lord of the Rings too. Like, these guys know how to write push rules.
Right, yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's such a great point. Yes. I mean, what's going to happen with, since we're just talking about it, I want to get into the Great Nations, but like the trick with Tectonic Force, we talked about this a couple weeks back, but the trick with Tectonic Force is in their mind what's happening is they're going, Hua! And all the Alarith are pushing you back, and that unit is moving back 2 inches, right? They have to end at least an inch away from you. And then
and Cow Titans do this too. It's not just Stone Guard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the Alarith units. Yeah, exactly. Which are the big Cow Mountains and the Stone Guard. And they're going, huh, like in 300 and pushing it. But actually what happens is the unit of 60 grots that you just pushed, that you just caused a nightmare for, only has to end an inch away from you. So they're going to take all their guys and they're going to move that 2 inches to surround you as much as they can. Like they're going to spill around your unit, moving 2 inches forward, piling in effectively an extra 2 inches, freeing themselves, by the by, from being double locked. Like this could be a great situation because they might have gotten themselves, big units like that can often get themselves into a situation where they get double locked fighting a smaller unit and they can't actually bring all their forces to bear. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you've ever played Horde armies, you know that what will happen when you engage a smaller sized unit is the enemy will be smart and double lock you, right?
Yep.
And they'll have trouble then actually spilling around you because their guys can't pile in to get closer. So when you go and knock them all back off the line, what's actually going to happen is they're going to flow 2 inches around you and bring their entire unit 2 inches toward you.
Yep.
Okay, everybody but the front line, who's just going to go like this and spread down. Think of like the paint melting over the top of the Sherwin-Williams logo. That's what's going to happen over that Alarith unit, right?
Yep.
So they surround, the guys in the back actually come forward, and then, the Alarith can step forward the inch, but all that's happened is the bad guy, the enemy, has been able to now bring more units, more models, I should say, into combat. It just does the opposite of what they're wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't like this rule at all. And by the way, doing all that with the 60 grots and then you having to move all your Alarith, I mean, if it was like Stone Guard or something, the one cow does not take a long time to move. But, there you go. Anyway, Tectonic Force is junk. Okay. I have very stern words for it. It is seriously my least favorite rule ever written in a battle tome in the history of all battle tomes, and that's saying a lot. Okay. But here we are. Here's what I want you both to opine on. This army is so weird in who's leading it.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, your actual general is either going to be, often, not always, but often, a lady in a veil with some magic rocks in a tin, or a dude sitting cross-legged on a floating stone.
Yep.
It's often not going to be the giant named cow monster, nor Teclis, nor the Light of Eltharion. I mean, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You only have 2 non-named heroes, right?
Yes.
Okay, and they're both weedy little, 5-wound spellcasters.
Yeah. It is the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And like this goes back to like what I felt so disjunctive is that it just doesn't. Yeah, it feels like they missed the boat there.
If I may say, I had always expected, like, especially since we figured out pretty early on this was the Techless army. Like, if there were going to be two books, or at least in the future, it's just going to be one bigger Lumineth book, where there's going to be a Tyrian army and a Techless army. The Techless army is mostly like the mages. This is sort of I think one of the terms is the Lambent Mystics. And so I had always expected like a weedy little Archmage to be like the main character leading most armies, and I expected that to be like woven into the game design where like you're always going to struggle to protect that tiny character, even regardless of how the meta really bullies tiny characters right now.
Yeah, sure.
And I see the Stone Mage as sort of just like it's that Archmage, but specializes in the Alarith aspect. The Cathalar, I'm not quite sure what to make of yet. It feels that's definitely one of the newer elements where they add sort of like this darkness and despair to like the themes of the High Elves, specifically like in their models. But yeah, there is no prince, like even on a horse. There's no BSB, sort of like noble guy. The Dawn Riders don't have a support hero. You go from mages to big monsters and techless.
I want to address something in the comments real quick.
Yeah.
The two things. One,
Yeah.
somebody said the other cow is not unique, so it can carry an artifact.
It's
The
not
other
true.
cow is not a hero, so it can
Yeah.
most definitely not. Now,
You-
that might
you-
get FAQ'd. Maybe they
Nah.
misprinted it in the back of the book and left a keyword off of the war scroll. Maybe all that's wrong, but I don't think so.
Mhm.
I think the other cow is just not a hero, which is going to lead to another FAQ we'll talk about later. No, they have two guys in this book who can carry artifacts.
Yeah.
Both of them tiny wizards,
Both of them tiny wizards.
which is fine.
Tiny wizard. Okay. Yes. So here's my second question. Do the command traits in this army actually mean anything? Is this just
No.
ipsum lorem text?
It's all ipsum lorem, like all of it.
Like especially the names, like War Master. Like, okay, I'm gonna look at this miniature because they always design the rules to fit the miniatures. I'm looking at the Cathalar miniature. Is this
Yep.
Cathalar a War Master? That would require a conversion, I think, because as stock, I'm not
You're not
quite
buying
sold
that?
on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. I
Oh, and you can give them combat items. You can give the Cathalar a combat item, which adds 3 attacks to her Deathly Touch.
Sure, you can make the Stone Mage have 3 extra wounds. But again, are you ever going to not take a Great Nation, is my point.
Oh yeah,
I think the Great Nations are all compelling, okay, is what I'm saying. But
Right.
between either, like, let's assume, because you've got 3 named characters who could potentially
Yeah.
lead your army, who, if you take any of them, you're not getting command traits, nor giving them artifacts, obviously, by the way.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's straight out. But on a deeper level, the command traits themselves are going to get overwritten because all 4 of the Great Nations are compelling. The downside to that, or I'd say 3 out of the 4 are really compelling, and 1 is like still pretty good. The downside to that is, when would you go not Great Nationless in this book? I see 0 incentive in this book to go Great Nationless.
yeah.
Like, I'm not concerned about the command trait here. There's nothing in this generic list that would make me say, "Oh, I've got to have this over over whatever I'm getting out of my Great Nation." In fact, quite the opposite. Most of the Great Nation ones are just flat out better, as a matter of fact. Like I'm not really super excited about my Alarith Stone Mage giving +1 bravery to my units that are wholly within 12 and subtracting 1 from enemies within 18. Like, okay. And and certainly, by the by, that makes the artifacts less interesting-ish, I guess, because you'll have 2 pretty often. I think you'll often have battalions in this army. They do have good battalions. Agree? Is that a fair statement?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you'll often have battalions. Is often a word we can all agree on?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, you will often have 2 artifacts, and I'm not sure who you're giving these to that it matters.
Yeah.
Like, Okay, my Calathar and my Stone Mage both have an artifact. Okay, like, cool beans. It's, they do some things. That's cool.
Yeah. 1 out of 6 games you can bring Techless back.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I just like it's just so disappointing. Like,
sure.
Because I just don't like. It seems like it's so much wasted space.
Right. Right. No, I get it. Well, that's and the trick to this is all of this stuff. The more we keep investing in sub factions, the less all of this actually makes sense to even write anymore because of where it's actually even valuable. But this army has it double down. Like, that's true just kind of in general. This army has it double down because of the overwhelming number of unique characters who are potentially its sort of, leadership cohort.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Cool. Anyway, just a little discussion I wanted to have. We'll come back to the spells later when we talk about the spellcasters. But let's talk about some great nations, yo. Great nations. Ymetrica. Ymetrica is our cow nation. It's the nation of the Techless Longhorns, where they call home. Okay. And what do you get out of Ymetrica? Well, as we all know, your Alarith turn Rend Neg 1 into Rend Neg 2.
Yep.
Rend Neg 1 into Rend nothing. I apologize. Other way around. In Ymetrica, they turn Rend Neg 2 into nothing. Quite a powerful effect. Especially as many of the potential Neg 3 Rend items that most armies could take just evaporated with the printing of this GHB. So there's a lot less Rend Neg 3 out in the meta with the removal of, like, Phase, or whatever they're called, Phase Dimensional Blades or Phase Sword, or whichever one it was, the 2 Neg 3 swords you could give the, say, like your Lord on Karkadrak or something.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Ignoring Neg 2 Rend is... It's pretty good.
Just to go back while we're on Ymetrica and a lot of stuff, one of the FAQ questions is the mountain stance, because it's very weirdly worded.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, if you choose to be in mountain stance, and I don't know if there's a penalty written somewhere else in this book that I missed, about, like, what's it Rob wants to put on a shirt? I'm always in mountain stance.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is no other stance. It's a great point we kind of skimmed over, but it's absolutely the case. There is no other stance.
Right.
Yet this thing is a thing you seem to pointlessly have to activate. So one would assume that they did it so they can introduce a new stance in Lumineth Realm Lords 2 Electric Boogaloo, I guess. They're just like future proofing, so when they want to introduce a new stance, they can.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, yes, you are just in this stance. Like, I would begin, if I was playing LRL, I would set my army down and I was playing a lot of Alarith. I would be like, okay, hello, Mr. or Ms. opponent, how you doing? Yep. This is my army. I'll explain it all in a moment. Here's my list. Just so you know, I'm in mountain stance all the time. If I ever don't say it, I'm in mountain stance. Because there's zero reason not to be. It costs me nothing to do it, so I am. Okay? That's how I would play this army. And, by the way, if you're playing LRL and somebody forgets to say it, and you go, oh, well, you didn't say it, so you're not in mountain stance?
You're a terrible person.
You're a bad person. I'm calling you out right now. You are a bad person.
Yeah.
Okay?
They have no other option. They are always in mountain stance. Congratulations.
Yeah. They have no other option, and it has no cost. That being the point, right? And it's always activatable. So, yes. Okay. At any rate, so yes, it makes so their stance ignores Rend Neg 2.
Mm-hmm.
Your command ability, Redoubled Force. You can use this command ability at the end of the combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Ymetrica Alarith unit that has just forced an enemy to move using Tectonic Force for the first time that phase, and that is wholly within 18 inches of the hero, and you can use Tectonic Force for a second time on a different enemy unit. Bam! That's right. You thought this ability was bad before? Double down. This is some Neil Breen levels of double downing here, okay?
Yeah.
No. Hard no. I didn't want to use it the first time. I don't want to use it the second time. Get out of here. Jeez, Pete. It doesn't matter. This will still be a very popular popular. Metrica will still be a popular choice because it makes the Stone Guard battle line. One of your only real choices to make something flat, easy battle line in this army, besides the Wardens, and because it has the Ren Neg 2 thing. They could have stopped there. That was a pretty big deal on its own. Their command trait is instead of making all their attacks, they can make one attack and roll a die. On a 2+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. I would just like to point out that these elves need to get up off of my Sigmar trick. So in the, I'm going to say either 4th or 5th edition Empire book, I don't remember which one it was, one of the two. Sigmar was a character you could take. Okay?
Sure.
Like you could take Sigmar the Barbarian because you could play the Empire army from that time period, from the time period of Sigmar. Mm-hmm. And Sigmar couldn't have magic items, but one of the things he could do was sacrifice all his attacks to make a single strength 10 big mighty wallop attack because, he's Sigmar the Barbarian. And so...
Doesn't the Ordinator do that?
He might do it. I don't know if he does it as well. I'm just saying, elves, stop stealing Sigmar's trick. It's Sigmar's trick. Fine enough. Who cares? Cool. And then your artifact, again, like, what a hilarious command trait to give to your Stone Mage, because that's what we're talking about here. That Stone Mage is going to whap somebody real hard with that stick. Whoop-hap! Got you! I got you with that stick. You can just see him. He's up on top of his rock, and he's just, wham! He's got the high ground. Mortal wounds.
Yeah. And we know, like, that's a big deal.
Once you got the high ground, mortal wounds are incoming. There you go. And then finally, you get an artifact once per phase. Like, this artifact is so crazy. The gift of the mountain, or the mountain's gift. Mm-hmm. Sorry, this artifact's hilarious. There's 3 things. This is a busy artifact. Here we go.
Yeah.
Again,
and you're picking my melee weapon on a wizard.
On a wizard, yes. Like, these things would be so good if they could be put on, say, anybody else. But here we go. I love these crazy artifacts. And these are better than what's in the generic or in the general section. Okay, Here we go. Pick one of your melee weapons. Once per phase, you can add 1 to the damage inflicted by one attack made by that weapon. In addition...
Wait, what?
Fine enough. So it's like Strength of Godhood. It's like the Slanesh thing. Got it. Okay.
So your wizard.
Your wizard can whap somebody super hard. They've got all sorts of whapping options.
Yeah, but can I just add the question? Like, I just noticed this before with the language. Once per phase, you can add 1 to the damage made by one attack with your melee weapon. So I guess that just means it's like one of your attacks has an extra damage.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, but they don't tell you
so
when
if
you have
you
to
do
trigger
damage,
that.
And it seems like trigger on damage. Sure. So like if you do damage, you can add 1 damage.
Right.
And so where it would be most useful would be something like it's not as good as just a flat +1 damage.
Obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird
but
ability.
It can be the one that gets through. I mean, it's fine.
Yes.
It's a weaker Strength of Godhood that the Pretender's Keeper of Secrets has. Where and there it's actually really well spelled out. Like in step 4, in step 4 of the damage assignment, you may choose to increase the damage by D3, right? Like they're very clear about it in here. Here they're just like whatever. I also got a shout out 2+ Tough's comment. Hey Steve, it looks like you copy pasted all 3 good artifacts into one by accident. Whoops. This is truly this artifact is like the Neapolitan ice cream. So here we go. There's some chocolate, there's some vanilla, there's some strawberry. Next up, in addition, roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer. On a 6, it's negated, so he's got a 6-up ward. We're officially back to calling them wards again, because that's what the Anvil of Apotheosis calls it, so they're wards again.
Yeah, get out of here, feel no pain.
No more feel no pain, no more after damage rolls. They are called wards. It's done. It's back. It's taken 5 years. We called them wards at the beginning of the show. We're calling them wards again. Okay, here we go. And the answer is no, you couldn't stack it with the Almighty Blow, the +1 damage, because Almighty Blow deals direct mortal wounds, not damage. And then finally, in addition, one more in addition. Ugh. Each time the bearer is affected by a spell or end the spell, you can roll a die on a 5+. Ignore the effects of that spell on the bearer. I'm going to call the 6-up ward the strawberry ice cream there. I'm going to call the +1 damage to one attack the vanilla, and I'm going to call the spell effect the chocolate. That's how I'm explaining this Neapolitan ice cream artifact. But yeah, there you go. Thoughts on your Metrica, gentlemen? What do you think of this one? I like it. It's compelling if you want to do the stone the cow army, basically, right?
Yeah, I really like when the best thing I think that this nation does is not actually on this page. It's making Stoneguard Battle Line.
Right. Right.
Yep. And well, Stoneguard Battle Line and increasing Ren to neg.
Yes, that too. I just think it's like it doesn't. The fact that that's not mentioned here, I think
Sure.
is a little funny.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the same in almost all these books, like where that is the hidden power of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it is by far the strongest piece of Umetrica. And like before, when I started, I was all CR, but now like the lists that I'm looking at that are without deck lists, like Umetrica is obviously high up there for like a mixed, like a true mixed arms list. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Great nation of is it? How are you pronouncing this? CR.
Yes, CR.
CR.
Cool. All right. Why not? SYAR. CR, huh?
Char.
Char. Yar.
It's Elvish, like
Yeah. Sure. Why
So-
not?
consonants galore.
I guess. All right. So, CR. CR units start the battle with 2 Aether Quartz reserves instead of 1. So, hence the previous discussion we had would mean that each unit can use 2 of those effects, which I think is actually almost as defensive of an addition as the turn rend neg 2 into rend nothing. I think these are equally potent defensive abilities because of what you can do with wardens, which we'll get to. So yes. So good stuff. Obviously useful if you find Aether Quartz to be valuable, which I think it highly is. Then it's good to have more Aether Quartz. Easy enough.
Yep.
Command ability. You can use this command ability when a friendly CR unit could use an Aether Quartz reserve ability. Even if any friendly CR units have already done so in that turn, if you do so, pick one friendly CR unit that has any Aether Quartz reserves and is wholly within 18th of a friendly CR hero. That unit can use one of its Aether Quartz reserve to use that Aether Quartz reserve ability. Woof. Okay.
Yep.
So, in other words, you can make 2 units do their Aether Quartz thing in the same phase.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're saying here. Yes?
Yep.
Yes,
Great.
and this is probably the best command ability in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I would tend to
So-
agree with that.
So you have a reason to have command point if there was ever a list that needed command points, unless you really just want to double down on buffing a lot of Alarith units with the
Yep.
cows. The reason to have extra command points would be in a CR list.
Yep.
Yep.
Totally agree.
So, this is great because you can have it. You can have 2 activations of Aether Quartz in the same phase. That being the trick, right?
But they have to be the same ability, it looks like. It says to use
that
Aether
Quartz. Sure.
reserve ability.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Which makes sense because oftentimes I think, are going to want to. You'll put the +1 to hit on multiple units, and then lightning reflexes them. I mean, obviously this is meant to pair with lightning reflexes, right? Or you'll +1 to this unit that's getting attacked, also +1 to save to this unit that's getting attacked. Like, yep, seems great. Never
And
never
if
a bad thing.
Teclis is in here, Teclis gets to use Aether Quartz twice across the game.
Yep.
Right.
Which is sexy.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Your command trait is at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy hero within 6 inches of the general. That enemy hero can only target this general in that phase. In addition, you can add 1 to hit rolls for attacks that target that enemy hero in that phase. All right, let's talk about our first instance of hardcore NPE.
Sure. Sure.
All right, I'm going to lay out the situation for you. This is going to happen to me, and
Let's
it will
do some trolling.
Yeah, and it will drive me bonkers in the game
Because
it happens in.
I'm gonna do it to you.
You're going to do this to me, yes.
I'm gonna be the one that does this.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have a Maw Crusher. And he's going to come screaming into some unit of dumb wardens or something, okay? Or Dawn Riders or whatever.
Yep.
Like some chaff unit I had no choice but to fight,
Yep.
right? And my goal is to clear that chaff unit and get into behind the lines.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't notice is, unfortunately, I accidentally landed within 6 inches of a stupid hero.
Yep.
Okay? Of this stupid hero. This particular stupid hero. Who is at the 6-inch line and is now going to go, hey,
Hey, you.
what's up? How you doing? And then I'll only be able to attack that thing. But of course, I can't attack that thing because it's
Yep.
6 inches away from me. And so I will sit there and do nothing. You know what's super fun with your big monsters? Doing nothing. And before you
Yep.
think, well, Vince, why would you ever go fight that unit? Why wouldn't you just not do that? Great question, imaginary person on the internet. Well, maybe because that general is sitting in the mid on an objective with some wardens around him, and I need to take that objective. And that 6-inch line's a real interesting thing when it comes to objectives. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's going to be super fun to have your Maw Crusher generals, your giants, like your new War Stompa giants or whatever.
Your
You
Timber.
can't get to the person in the back.
Yeah, your Archeons just literally go, I activate. Your turn. Boy, that'll be fun. Can't wait for that. I love not rolling dice and attacking with my giant toys. It's like my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. And then meanwhile, by the way, it's not like that the person doesn't get attacked in reserve, because in addition, you can add 1 to hit rolls for attacks that target that enemy hero in that phase, meaning all the wardens that are spiked out around the objective and who are all going to be fighting because they have giant pokey spears,
Yep.
right, are all going to get +1 to hit and just stab the Maw Crusher to death with mortal wounds.
Yep.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
It's going to be exciting.
Most fun. I can't wait till somebody doesn't know that that's what's going to happen and steers into that, and that goes off, and they lose their best piece, their most favorite model. Some Timmy loses their favorite monster in a combat without fighting with him, and he just gets stabbed to death.
Oh, I can see it happening in a bunch of tournament games too.
Sure.
Like that's the thing. And people will rage, and life will go on.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yep.
So, great.
Yep.
Great ability. I mean, it's very powerful. Like I said, the answer is you just bury that general who has that command trait in the middle of an objective with wardens around him. Yes.
Yep.
Like, and then say, come fight me. And by that, I mean, you won't be able to fight me. This is my objective forever. Unless you have something else that can come attack me. So,
Yeah, like a unit.
like, yeah, you have to have a non-hero unit. But a lot of armies use their heroes as their hammers. Like, a lot. And you do need a pretty significant hammer to pull off wardens, as we'll talk about in a minute. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, your artifact. It's the Perfect Blade. I don't like that elves have a thing called the Perfect Blade. That is a Slaneshi artifact. I don't appreciate you stealing it from us. But it always hits on 3s, always wounds on 3s, and a save roll of 3 or less always fails. Which is a neat weapon. It's actually kind of a cool sword for your Cathalar or Stone Mage to have. So, cool stuff.
Yeah.
If I just may, because we're closing out on the last, so there are 10 artifacts in this book between the ones in the Great Nations and the 2. 30% of the 10 artifacts are swords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's keep moving. Next up, I think, is the one we find probably that I think is probably the least interesting, right? Iliatha.
Yeah.
So Iliatha.
Their lore is creepy, but it's fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Add 2 to the bravery characteristic of your Venari and elementary units.
Mm-hmm.
After your and unity of purpose. After a friendly Iliatha Venari unit uses a command ability, you can pick one other friendly Iliatha Venari unit within 3 inches of that unit. If you do so, that other unit can also use that command ability without spending any command points. Which I think, and you can use this ability only once per phase. I think that's actually a pretty decent ability. This is why I said even Iliatha, the least interesting one, is still like half interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Command ability, you can use this command ability in your shooting phase or in the combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Iliatha Venari unit with 2 or more models. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for that unit. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned in the big talk we had before, it's kind of the basic command ability, but when 1 way worse and in 3 ways better. So, okay. And the artifact is the Simulacra. The first time the bearer is slain, before removing them from the battlefield, roll a die. On a 1 to 3, the bearer is slain. On a 4 to 6, they're not slain. All wounds allocated to them are healed, and any wounds currently remain to be allocated to them are negated, which is a cool artifact.
Yeah.
Super cool artifact. So again, I rate this one as like It's the least interesting one, but still interesting. It still gets like a 6 out of 10. And the other ones are like solid 8s. So, pretty good. Anything else about Iliatha?
No, no.
Cool. All right.
We're getting to the good one, though.
And then finally, Zatrek.
My favorite.
Yes, Zatrek. That's a good point. Soren pointed out that their command ability doesn't say you actually have to be in range of any hero. Like, you could just kind of do that anywhere. Yes,
so
which,
in the
which
rules,
Tom had
like this
pointed
came
out.
up a few times. Like in the core rules, it just says if your army has heroes that are on the battlefield, you can use command abilities. And I think this battle tome has the most non-hero units with command ability access.
Yeah, I mean, well, the question here is, one, do you still need a hero to activate it because of that? Because we can point to the core rules and say heroes are the ones that use command abilities. But they'd be able to activate it at any range. Like, if you've got a hero anywhere on the battlefield, they can do this. Because there's no range to it, clearly. Yeah. It's not like within... Most of these say this person can do it if they're within 18 inches of a hero or something like that, right? You can blah, 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 blah. Whereas this would just be like, you could have a Stone Mage in the left corner of the board, left upper corner, and you could have a unit fighting in the lower right, and they could technically get this thing happening, right? Anyway. All right, Zatrek. Magic one. Add 1 to the first casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll you make for each friendly Zatrek wizard in each hero phase. It is important to note that this army is, again, got a lot of wizards. Like, say, many of your units.
Yep.
By the way, does anyone else feel we were oversold on that everything is a wizard?
Yeah.
Because not everything is a wizard.
Yeah, like half the units aren't.
There are many non-wizard units in this army. I mean, there are a lot of wizards, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like the people who wrote the community article missed a trick. Like, somebody was just like they played a game of telephone to the rules designers and were like, yeah, we've got a lot of unit wizards. What's that? Everybody's a wizard. Everybody's a wizard. Quick, call it in, Johnny. And then, boom, the article went up, and it was like, everybody's a wizard. No, not everybody is a wizard. Many people are not wizards. We'll get there. All right, but at any rate, it's cool. +1 to the first casting, dispelling, or unbinding for everybody is certainly sweet. Command trait. A Zatrek wizard general must have this command trait instead of the ones listed, which is cool because you're only 2 wizards, or the only 2 people who can get command traits are both wizards. So, handy.
Yep.
Fast learner. This general can attempt to unbind 1 extra spell in the enemy hero phase. In addition, the second time that this general attempts to unbind a spell in the same enemy hero phase, you can reroll the unbinding roll. So,
I really like it.
Yeah, cool enough. Notably, there is no command ability here in Zatrek.
Right.
You do have an artifact of power, which is roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer. Add 2 to the roll if Teclis is part of your army and on the battlefield. On a 6+, that wound or mortal wound is negated. So your Cathalar or your Stone Mage can have a 4-up ward save, which is cool. A 4-up ward, sorry, not save, just ward. And lore of Zatrek. Instead of a command ability, you get a spell. So your Zatrek wizards know the following spell in addition to the other spells they know, which is Overwhelming Heat, casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick 1 enemy unit wholly within 24 inches of the caster and visible to them. Have the move characteristic of that unit until your next hero phase. Then roll a die. If the roll is equal to or greater than that unit's save characteristic, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So, and there you go.
Yeah.
I assume you both like Zatrek. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yes.
I mean, it's lost a lot of stock in my mind.
Okay.
Why?
Because of the ward save not stacking anymore.
Oh,
I mean,
because walk me through your thought there. Okay.
Because like before, you would have had like the ward save from Teclis. Like this Zatrek incentivizes running Teclis.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Teclis grants a ward save.
Okay.
With the new FAQ that we've learned about, the ward save of
you can just choose the 4-up instead of the 5-up. He would bubble
right
or whatever.
Right. Instead of the 4-up 5-up, which is what it should have been.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
And so like to me that lost some value.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the artifact, not the trait. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like Zatrek overall.
No, like I was stronger on Zatrek back when I could actually like fully use it. With
sure,
with
when
the
you could
thinner
stack ridiculous defensive things.
Yes.
And let me just address some of the comments that Autumn Lotus said. I don't think this book feels rushed out. I really don't. I think this book actually works really well. There's a lot of things in like this is a mostly consistent good book. It's one of the better books you've gotten so far. It doesn't mean that there's not goofy stuff in it. We're hitting on a lot of the goofy stuff because that's our job. Right? Like everybody can just read the normal stuff. I'm trying to call out things that are unusual or might trip people up. So we tend to spend more time on them. But I actually think this is a solid book. It like there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of different interesting ways to actually build this army with a limited model range. So and I do think like again the strength of having 3 3/4 compelling sub factions is actually pretty good by the standards of this. That's amazing that all 4 of them are almost on equal footing. 3 of them I really would have struggled to choose between. The fact that like, but there's oddities about this army too, like we talked about with the leadership and stuff like that. It is a strange army. That doesn't mean it's a bad army or uncompelling. It just means it's strange, right? And so,
if I may add for Zytrek before we close it out, this is definitely one I would choose if I'm not taking Techless. I know the artifact gets better with Techless in the army, but I think you can the way this encourages you to set up your army is for like good stuff, just extra Venari. The more Venari units you have in your army, I think the better Zytrek makes your list. Especially if you add something like Chronomatic Cogs, because I was talking with Darren Watson after a few like in-person playtest games, and if you just put Cogs in the middle of your army, any one of your Venari units, which now knows an additional spell, so technically your Venari units have access to 3 spells, Power of Heish, and then 2 from the Lore of Heish. You can just any one of those units can manipulate Cogs to slow down time and cast 2 of their spells.
True. They could also reroll saves, which would also be pretty good.
No, only the unit champion can, because technically only the unit champion counts as the wizard.
I understand he's the wizard. I'm still not sure that only his saves would be the one modified, given the nature of how armor saves on a unit work. But
that's interesting. I didn't.
Yeah.
Like it's the model is the wizard. I agree, but that's not how you don't make armor saves aren't an individual model. Right. You allocate wounds to a unit that has an armor save characteristic.
Okay.
It needs an FAQ. Like, I get what you're saying, and how you're saying it may be that they might just say it doesn't work like that, just forget it, don't try.
Sure.
Okay. And it might be overkill anyways, as we'll talk about with the battalion. But it's, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Let's talk spells. I want to talk spells, and then we're going to get into some scrolls. We're going to get into some scrolly scrolls. 2 lores. Lore of Heish, Lore of the High Peaks. Okay. You can choose or roll for 1 blah 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 spell for each wizard in a Lumineth Realm Lords army. Techless knows all spells in all of the following tables, so he knows all of them. Okay. Great. I'm not going to talk about every spell. I want to talk about a couple spells. We can all pick some spells we like, or something like that. I want to talk about the big NPE spell. I want to talk about the one that I've had to load it up. I've been waiting to talk about this spell for weeks. I am talking about it now. Here we go.
Okay.
By the way, I actually like most of their spellers. I think they're fine. I actually think they're interestingly balanced.
Yeah.
But this one, here's where we go. Total Eclipse. It is, in fact, a total eclipse of my heart. So, casting value... By the way, you can't use part of a song title as your spell name and not expect me not to sing that song every time I cast that spell. At any rate, Total Eclipse has a casting value of 8. 8 is great, which is a hard number to roll, even though you can often have +1 or +2. Unless you have Techless, in which case you don't roll it anymore, it just happens. It's a really interesting sort of a bifurcated situation there. If successfully cast, until your next hero phase, your opponent must spend 2 command points to use a command ability instead of 1. Holy hell. I have never seen a single spell shut down an entire enemy army more effectively than this spell. There are certain armies that have really junky battalions or bad battalions or access to no battalions, right, at all.
Yep.
And don't exactly have easy abilities to get more command points.
Right.
Right? Maybe they purchase an extra one. So on turn 1, they have 2. Okay? Like on their turn 1. But nothing like firing this off and then like when they only have 1 because of their battalion, or maybe they bought one. Like many armies have only 1 in the clip before their turn, right? We can all agree with that. Yes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So nothing like firing this spell off and then having Teclis drop his big spell bomb, having a bunch of sentinels shoot their arrows and just pepper units, right?
Yep.
And making it impossible to use the inspire, to use the. I can't think of a stupid name. The I don't lose any models to battle shock command ability anymore. Just shuts it off.
Yep. Yep.
That's it. You're not saving anybody. I'm going to take your big unit. I'm going to drop mortal wound bombs everywhere. I'm going to weaken all your units. I'm going to pop pepper everybody with sentinels, and I'm going to shove my Dawn Riders across the board 28 inches and like charge a unit on the side just to get some more damage into it. And then I'll watch a bunch of your army crumble to battle shock because your 1 command point cannot make anybody immune to battle shock.
Yep. Yep.
Not to mention the fact that many armies just rely on having like, I have 1 command point a turn. That's what I get. And I need to use this 1 command ability, and it's kind of how my army is playable. And sorry about your luck. Yeah, thank you, Inspiring Present, Okus. It just would not come to my head. I don't know how. I've used that ability a billion times. I couldn't remember its dumb name. Anyways, some armies just play like that. And you don't get that anymore. You just don't get to use your command abilities. Sorry.
And this doesn't have a lot of impact in the mirror either. Like a Lumineth versus Lumineth match, it's like, right. So it's even more like just impact on other armies.
Mm-hmm.
So my bottom line on this one is it's interesting because it's an 8. And like realistically your caster is going to be at maybe +2. Okay, or whatever, like assuming no arcane terrain, +1 or +2, assuming you're not near arcane terrain or something weird like that. So that's an ask, right? Hard aiding, needing to roll a 6 or a 7, you will fail that often if you're trying it out of a Stone Mage or something like that, and it will get dispelled sometimes.
Yep.
If you've got Teclis, this is just an autocast. Anytime you want this, this is on. Period. This happened. This just happened.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, that's pretty good. And yeah, like the twins. So, yeah, W. Soren mentioned the Twin Stones. Yes, that's another common source of the +1. Like, often you might have the Twin Stones, or you might be in Zatrek, or you might have, whatever, one of the artifacts.
All of those things.
All those things, yeah. There's a couple different ways you could get it. So, yes. I don't know how much the Twin Stones will actually build up huge numbers. I'm suspect about that, but you could always get at least +1 out of the Twin Stones. So
that's another FAQ question.
Sure.
All right, that's my spell. That's my rant. I again, if Teclis isn't part of the armies, if he's a trap, if he's not actually seen very much, then I'm not sure I care about this spell.
I mean, you don't think it'll go off even if people are in like Zatrek or whatever?
It will go off some, but the difference between like likely getting it just on the 8 or getting it some of the rounds.
Yeah.
And having it automatically for sure every round, anytime I want it, I have the spell, period, shut your face. Eat this spell. Because that's what Teclis could do.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's going to win you the game, which there are armies which it will do, because it will just shut off their ability to do their trick, right? You will power it through.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah. I have played all of my games so far in Zatrek without Teclis, and I have not been able to cast the spell yet. 8 is a hard ask, even with +1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, sure, that's just how dice work. Like, I think in one of my games, the first turn, like technically, I have 7 casts all at +1, and I ended up casting 2 spells. Like, and my opponent wasn't able to unbind anything. I was just like, if you're rolling 3s, you're rolling 3s.
You're rolling 3s. Yeah, it's a dice game. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but
So
I do think that it is a problem when you factor in Teclis. But I think the high casting value, like, if you're not using Teclis, it has its own balancing factor. I think in
I agree.
how hard it is to cast.
Yep. I agree. By the way, there was a different version of this spell that could have been written. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying that could have.
Sure.
They cast on like a 6 or a 7. That was like pick a single hero within 18 inches. That hero must spend 2 points instead of 1 to use any command abilities printed on their war scroll or something like that, right? Or the first command ability they use or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there was other versions of this that wouldn't be backbreaking, right? So
Yeah.
all right, that's my spell. What else do you guys want to talk about? It's just that's a bad spell. I started on a sour note. I wanted to end on the positive note because there's cool spells in here too. I think they're actually pretty fun. So what do you guys like?
Speed of High-ish is my money. Like I just love that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Double movement in an army that's already super slow. It gives a lot of options, and it really gives money to the writers, the Dawn writers, because they can shoot across the board with it.
Yeah,
So.
I think it's like the money spell of the lore, because as you mentioned, a lot of your foot dudes don't have a lot of speed. Doubling your move, cast on a 5, it's got a decent range. Wholly within 18 inches. It's a nice spell. Yeah,
Yep.
I dig it.
Yeah.
And it's good old fashioned double move is a good thing. I like it. I dig it. It's a reasonable cast. A+. And fun, by the way. It's neat to see, like, suddenly those little elves march themselves across the board real fast. That's kind of cool.
What it fixes, I had said, like, this was a bad, like, talking about talking about, like, an evolved Fire Slayers. Like, it solves the Fire Slayer problem.
Yeah, sure.
Like, this is Fire Slayers with the tools to actually shore up all your weaknesses. No magic, and speed, having both a speed unit and a speed spell. I don't know. I'm a really big fan.
Yeah, sure. Martin, what have you been casting? What have you been finding your money on? Like you're casting a ton of spells.
So like in my games, like I use cogs, and then it's either Power of Heish or Ethereal, Power Heish, and then double move. Protection Techless, as much as I have been putting it on certain units, that 8, like as soon as you see 8+,
right.
it's a tall ask even for like, because you have to roll average on 2 dice just to get the +1 to meet just the bare minimum of that 8.
Yeah, you have a 56% chance of success, assuming you have +1 to cast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do like. I haven't really used Spell Portal yet, but Lambent Light works like a Tau Marker Light from 40k.
Yeah.
If you put that through the Spell Portal, because one of the things to note is that some of these spells, like even though they're Holy Within, they're shorter range than people think, unless you're buffing, like specifically a Venari unit is casting it on themselves.
Right.
Like you really struggle to get those Holy Within ranges. Lambent Light in particular, if you send it through the Spell Portal, it becomes much easier to bypass that short range. So I haven't used that yet, but that seems like a cool idea, just to ensure that, because one of the things we talked about with Aether Quartz is you cannot use Aether Quartz to boost any of the abilities to help you fish for more mortal wounds.
But this does, because it lets you just reroll hits when you're shooting.
Right. So this is a key to, like, when you see rerolls, it's like I can fish for more mortal wounds.
Yep.
And I think that there's definitely a trick there.
Agreed. Yep. I like it. I think overall the lore of Heish is just better than the lore of the High Peaks. That's not to say the lore of the High Peaks is bad, because I don't think it is, but it's better, right? I mean, that's not a controversial statement, I don't think.
I think I would agree with that.
Yeah. Like, lore of the High Peaks plays a lot more in the bravery space. Like, your first 3 spells all kind of play in some way with bravery, and it's not in any way that you really need it in a huge way in this army.
Right.
So, okay. That's fine. Yeah. All right, cool. Anything else we want to mention? I mean, their spells, they're fun. Oh, you mentioned Ethereal. We should unpack that. Ethereal Blessing, because it's a very relevant spell. Cast on a 6. You can pick a friendly Lumineth Realm Lords unit and give them Ethereal, effectively, right? So they ignore positive and negative modifiers to their save, which is cool. Yeah. Very cool. Yet another way that, by the way, that Wardens could become very tanky.
Incredibly tanky.
Yeah.
Right.
On top of stacking debuffs.
Yeah. And you've got choices here. Remember, every wizard gets to take one of these spells, including your units. That being the key. Your wizard units are all taking one of these spells as well. So, because they are all Venari wizards.
Yep.
So, and there's a big question right now because it also says the Light of Eltharion gets to take one of these, and he is not actually a wizard. Is he supposed to be a wizard? Is it supposed to be that he can use it with the Aether Quartz ability? The answer, who knows?
Right.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Wait for the FAQ. That's a definite FAQ. Why? Like, can he just spin up to Aether Quartz it? Maybe. That could be. But he doesn't have the wizard keyword, but yet he's mentioned by name. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Battalions. Let's cover them real quick. Here, this is so easy. Ready? Here, I'm going to cover the battalions like this. There are 3 battalions in this book. There's a super battalion that you're obviously never going to take. Okay, there are 3 battalions in this book. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
1, if you're going to do the, if you're going to make the center of your army all the stone people, like if you're going Ymetrica, if you're all techless longhorns, right?
Yep.
Okay. 1, if you're going heavy Venari and you want the more classic high elf thing where you've got your wardens and your Cathalar in there. And 1, that you're going to take in a very unusual situation, I probably as a second battalion, that is just a bunch of Dawn Riders.
Sure.
But that's the sort of odd man out. It's a cool battalion. It's not that I don't like it. I actually it's perfectly fine. But it is the weird one because the other 2 so clearly are the literally the foundation of your army. Like, is the foundation of your army stone people or Venari people, Alarith or Venari? And then there's also some ponies. It feels like,
sure.
And also ponies is the name of the 3rd battalion.
Well, and let me just say that I think that points to just how disjunctive this feels. Because it feels like that Dawn Rider lance should be led by a mounted hero.
Sure, yeah. We all feel the lack of the
Make him on the Anvil of Apotheosis.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Go match play for Anvil. We all want it. We all need it. Do it.
Yeah, I struggle because I just wish, I don't know. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So what do they do? Just very quickly, I'll mention these things because I think they are actually quite good. I'm not going to mention the exact composition. It's the Alarith one is the stone stuff. It's what you think it is. At the start of the combat phase, any friendly stone guard units from this battalion that are wholly within 12 inches of a friendly hero from the same battalion can turn their skin to stone. You can reroll save rolls for attacks that target that unit, but they can only pile in 1 inch. Make sure stone dudes who could be, again, if you're Ymetrica, you're taking this battalion. You might as well just write off the points right now.
Right.
Because, of course, you want to ignore Rend 2 and reroll all your saves. And then if you're also ethereal, I guess you could be, because why not why not ignore all Rend or something or whatever. Or if you don't want to be ethereal, why not get your +1 to save from your Aether Quartz and just be truly immortal so nobody in that unit dies ever. Because they'll be on 3-up, ignoring Rend 1 and 2, reroll all saves, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good. The
Auralan Legion.
Sure, let's go with that. You can reroll save rolls of 1 for attacks that target a friendly unit from this battalion while it's within 3 inches of any other friendly unit from the same battalion. I see a theme. The battalions are about rerolling saves. Again, this is why I said
for the Dawn Rider lance.
Sure. This is why I feel the wardens can also be quite tanky. I mean, bodies wise, obviously you're getting more bodies for less points than the stone guards, although not wounds. Talk about whatever that means later. But they can also push themselves. The wardens can also push themselves to a 3-up. If you're in this battalion, you can also be rerolling 1s. Yes, you're not ignoring the Rend, but you can be on 3-up rerolling, which is still pretty darn good.
You can get the rule that all shields have across basically the rest of units in this game, which is rerolling 1s to save.
Yes. All right. So cool. Battalions. They're fun. Anything else we want to say about them? Or are we ready to talk units?
We can talk units.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, we got to start with the man, the myth, the legend, the big boy himself, the guy who failed at the last moment, who couldn't handle all the winds of magic. He's back again, though. His stupid plans may have set stupid things in motion in the end times, but he still fails up. He failed up all the way into godhood. It's Teclis, that's right. And his weird friend, Selenar, the Spirit of Hysh. I feel like Selenar is that weird friend. Yeah, do you have anybody who you kind of put up with, and they're like okay, but then they have a really weird friend they bring around, and you're like, oh, gosh, I can barely tolerate this guy, and he always brings around that weird friend. That's Selenar.
I don't disagree with that.
Sure. Anyway, Archmage Teclis, what's relevant about him? Well, he's 660 points. That's a pretty relevant thing.
Yeah.
16 wounds, 4 up save. He can fly. 12-inch move. And we're going to skip all the rest of this stuff because most of it doesn't matter. Okay?
Sure.
Because, like, I don't care about the attacks or anything like that. None of that matters. All right? What we're going to talk about is Teclis and magic, because that is what's relevant. So, he is the Archmage, the ultimate Archmage. Start of your hero phase, you must say if this model will cast 1 spell, 2 spells, or 4 spells. That's the thing you have to say up top. If you cast 1 spell, it's done automatically, and it cannot be unbound. Right? It just happens. If you cast 2 spells, each is automatically cast on a roll of 12. People may attempt to unbind them, which is a comical statement. Hope you've got a bonus to unbind. All you've got to do with your +1 to unbind, somebody lucky enough to have +1 to unbind, is roll them boxies. Easy. So he can choose to cast 2 spells that, if the opponent has a +1 to dispel, has a 1 in 36 chance to be dispelled. Pretty good. Or he can cast 4 spells. If he does that, then they're all cast on a 10, and people can attempt to unbind them as normal. I would point out that if people don't have bonuses to unbind, like rolling an 11 is not a high percentage outcome. Okay.
You have to basically start at being a Lord of Change to have.
So even his chances. 4 spell setting is nearly impossible to dispel. Like statistically, if he spent all 5 rounds of the game, like let's say he lives, which is questionable, we can talk about that, but which is questionable. If he spent all 4 rounds of the game all 5 rounds of the game firing off 4 spells, so he cast 20 spells in the game, right? Statistically, 1 of those gets unbound with no bonuses to dispel.
Yep.
Okay. It's slightly below 2.
He's pretty good.
So that's that. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. No, you might have thought we're done, but we're not. Aura of Selenar. Add 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for friendly Lumineth Realm Lords units within range of this model's Aura of Selenar ability. Which is like starts at 16 inches and gets smaller if he's wounded. Meaning all your other wizards get better. So if you are in Zatric with this guy, you're +2 then for everybody else. So like all your Venara units are +2 to cast and stuff like that. Right? Discs of the Elementary. In your hero phase, in addition to casting 1, 2, or up to 4 spells, this model can automatically dispel 1 endless spell. Do not roll 2d6. In the enemy hero phase, this model can automatically unbind 1 enemy spell. Do not roll 2d6.
Yeah, another dispel scroll.
He can just do that. He can just Dikembe Mutombo that stuff right off the board. No. Just get that out of here.
This is what we like to call
stop sign.
Like he is the new heart of what we call a spell dom.
Yes. So we have a new term for these: Nagash, Croak, arguably the Lord of Change, but he's at the lower end of it. Yep. And this guy, the spell doms, DOMS doms, they are spell doms. They dominate. They dominate the magic phase.
Yep.
So, and then finally, each time a friendly unit within range of this model's Aura of Selenar, so the aforementioned 16 and going down Aura, is affected by an endless spell or a spell cast by an enemy wizard, you can roll a die. On a 4+, ignore the effects of that spell or endless spell on that unit. Then, pick 1 enemy unit within 18 inches of that unit. That enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. The range of the Aura of Kalinar ability for this model is shown in the damage table above. Uh, of course, the argument here being the FAQ being, can you cheat with this? Tom, do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the FAQable cheating with this? How you cheat with this?
So like this goes one of two ways basically. This either is so depending on how you read, so it's affected by an endless spell or a spell cast by an enemy wizard. The question is the cast by an enemy wizard, is that clause affecting the spell or endless spell, or is it only affecting just spell?
Right.
Okay.
Because if it's not, which as the sentence structure, that clause wouldn't be affecting the endless spell, but continue.
Right. And in that light, if it's any endless spell, what this means is that you can be in your area, cast an endless spell that affects your whole army, like cogs per se, and then make a bunch of 4+ saves, and every 4+ to negate the cogs effect, you suddenly do
D3 mortals.
D3 mortals. So like, let's say you have 10 units in the area within the aura. You'd throw 10 dice. You get 5 4+. You do 5d3 to an enemy unit within 18 with a friendly endless spell.
Right. Now there is clearly no way that's what was intended. Like there's no
zero
way.
There are 0 ways that was what was intended.
But as it is written right now, it is very interpretable that is how it could be read. Okay?
Right.
Definitely needs an FAQ.
Right.
Because
it's just
your point is when you turn on cogs, it affects all of your units, giving them +2.
But it says an enemy wizard, right?
Well, no, that's the point. By an endless spell or
okay.
Yeah.
A spell cast by an enemy wizard. Now again, let's be very clear here. This is stupid. Okay?
Yep.
What Tom and I are describing is so straight up busted and dumb.
It's so jank and not what was intended.
Right. Because it would mean your units are 50% of the time shrugging off the bonus of something like cogs, even if you wanted them to get faster. You just can't. Right?
And yet, this is how it's written. So on one hand, there's either that, or if it's any endless spell cast by an enemy wizard, there's another like backhand to this. In that the way that it's written then is that they don't actually get this aura on the endless spells that come out of the bottle, the KO spell bottle, because they're not being cast by a wizard.
Also true. I would point out, by the way, yeah, that's absolutely true. I would also point, because it wasn't cast.
Right.
So if you say the cast by an enemy wizard applies to the first part of the sentence, then okay,
suddenly KO get a free pass
on
their
roll up and rat trap or demon rift the heck out of your army, and you're gonna have nothing to say about it. And the tech list is just like, what is this technological wizardry? I can do nothing. You've tricked me into a foul technology.
In the mirror, if Eltharion casts a spell and doesn't have the wizard keyword, it would also get a pass.
I would point out, by the way, that also as well, Tom, if the enemy wizard clause applies to endless spell as well, like let's say that's true, okay?
Yep.
So let's take the hard reading of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your opponent casts cogs and sets it to speed up time.
Yep. It still works.
You're still then going to go and like melt 5d3 mortal wounds onto them, even on the hard reading of this.
Right.
Okay, or they drop a prismatic wall or something.
I'm going to melt one of your units now.
Yes. Like, shouldn't have cast that cogs.
Yeah, that was your first mistake.
Mm-hmm. So, like, this whole ability needs massively FAQ'd and reworked because it's just... like, no reading of it, no matter how generous, actually works right now.
Well, it works.
I
it
get
just
what
doesn't
it's going
work
for.
how you like it. It works, but it creates a bunch of loopholes that you don't want to see on the table.
That clearly they didn't intend. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely right.
Because it's just not what they want.
And we're not done.
No.
And we're not done.
No. I should also.
And I found that, by the way, within the first like 14 minutes of reading this book.
Yes, you did. This was like, yes, in the first 20 minutes of you getting the book, you said, what the hell? No, it's absolutely true. So we're not done with Tackless yet. because we mentioned how he casts the number of spells he casts. He can also unbind any number of spells in the enemy hero phase. He's up there. He's going toe to toe with Nagash. He's like, what? I got you. Got 8 spells. I got 8 unbinds. You got 10 spells. I got 10 unbinds. Got all the unbinds in this bag. What do I got in this bag? Unbinds, all of them,
And a Dispel Scroll.
and a Dispel Scroll. That's
Like,
right.
if there was ever universal magic items, like, again, this is for the GHP talk, it's like, I always think that, like, a Dispel Scroll should be something that every army has access to.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I don't disagree with that.
And he also, so he knows all the spells. Like, he knows both lores, all the spells, all the basic stuff, and these 2 spells as well. Spell number 1, Protection of Teclis, cast on a 10. Normally that'd be insane for him. Slam dunk, right? Okay. Basically, he bubbles out an aura that until your next hero phase, roll a die each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a friendly unit wholly within 18 inches of the caster. On a 5+, that mortal wound is negated. That wound or mortal wound is negated. So he can just bubble out a big 18-inch or a 5-up ward. Cool. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I don't hate that at all. Cool spell. It's fine. Storm of Searing White Light. Casting value of 10. If successfully cast, roll a die for each enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster, invisible to them. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 through 4, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 5+, that unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. The nightmare scenario here is, of course, that he goes Spell Portal. I'm going to make me a Spell Portal. And then I'm going to put this Storm of Searing White Light through that Spell Portal. And then I'm going to power bomb your whole army.
Yep.
And just like, okay, because then the placement of that second spell portal becomes the origination for the 18-inch aura, which is going to be most of your army, realistically, which means your entire army suffers something like 2 or 3 mortal wounds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but one spell doing 20 to 30 mortal wounds. So the average army has about 10 units. Yep. So the average, so a single spell being cast doing 20 to 30 mortal wounds, especially if your army doesn't have healing of any kind, is a pretty big deal. Most armies have, let's call the average army right now having somewhere between 100 and 120 wounds total in the army. You just lost a 5th to a 6th of your army.
Yep.
On that one cast. And by the way, he's going to keep doing that every round. Like, on a long enough time frame, you know, he's going to get there.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, as a guy like Ghostbun's comment, nuclear launch detected. Yep, that's right.
No, I when this was first translated, like, it wasn't like Storm of Searing White Light wasn't translated yet. I think that the scroll would be a lot better, like, received if it was just, if a signature spell was just Protection of Teclis. I like that spell a lot, especially with the casting value being so high. It's like, specifically, like, it is meant only for him to cast it, and it changes how your army is set up and functions. It is also, like, one of the main ways to get around, like, Teclis, because he's very fragile until you turn the spell on, and that's what makes him, I think, like, 660 points is a lot.
It's a lot.
Like,
yep.
And the main value is in his spells. Forget about what he does in combat and shooting,
it's all garbage.
and he's on a cabbage base. It's it is almost so hard to screen him as a Lumineth player. You almost don't want to try, but you have to,
right,
or he's just going to get hit. And this spell, like, your choices are 1 automatically, 2 at 12, or 4. And you have so many things that I feel like are priorities for him to cast in an army built around him that you're probably going to go for 4. And this is always going to be one of them. Possibly Total Eclipse, maybe Storm of Searing White Light. I don't know if you're going to cast that every turn, because there's other things you want your units to do instead.
Yeah.
So I definitely like Protection of Teclis, Storm of Searing White Light. I can see how that gets egregious. Like, Tech NATO is, I don't want to say appropriate, because I still think what Croak does is a little more egregious.
I don't disagree with that. It's more wounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
It
is.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like with 18 inches, it's Like 18 inches, even around his base, is not going to hit as many units as like your opponent eventually. Like the more Techless gets played, people are just going to plan for that. Or it's like, do I have to just stay away or only send in units when I know I can get Techless down? Will they have their own? Huh?
Well, the really terrifying thing is if he has mirror.
A spell portal, yes.
Yes,
If he has spell portal.
But
Suddenly, we're in a different universe if that happens.
Right, and that's also another investment. Spell portal is what, 70 points?
80 now, right? I don't remember what it is post. I don't remember if it changed.
Oh yeah. 70, 80 points doesn't matter. It's an even more of an investment. You are losing the opportunity to put more models on the table.
Yeah.
And there is no healing unless you take Life Swarm. So if someone has the opportunity, especially if they have the opportunity to hit before Techless can turn on his buffs, like Protection of Techless, if they say they don't kill him. Not everybody's KO. I understand KO is the gatekeeper. You're not always going to fight against, say, whatever can alpha to do damage. Eels, KO, Cities of Sigmar, or something else. Stormcast, because Shootcast is going to come back in some regard, I'm sure. But otherwise, it's going to be a handful of wounds, and he's just going to keep those for the rest of the game. Yeah. So I think Protection of Techless is that there are certain things which will keep him from being extra egregious. I think you're not often going to see the I'm just going to do the one spell you can't stop, or I'm going to do the two spells at 12. I think it's most of the time going to be the 4 at 10.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this guy's interesting. So let's break this down real quick, right? Okay.
Yeah.
If Techless is viable and shows up in a lot of armies, then necessarily he and the other spell doms that are out there have put us, and including KO, just the capabilities of Tzeentch and Seraphon in general, have put us into a world where 5 wound heroes are just dead. Those don't count anymore. If you have a 5 wound foot hero and he survives until round 2, you've done a great job. Right? Yeah. That's the meta we're entering.
Yep.
Now, if Techless isn't viable, that's a little bit of that pressure taken off. There's still a lot of other things putting pressure on that, but it's a little bit of that pressure taken off. And it certainly means that Lumineth can't do that as easy. They have a second way they can do it. We'll talk about it later, where they're gonna use to remove your heroes. But if he is viable, he becomes a major threat.
Yeah.
If it's not, that kind of threat goes away against Lumineth. Your sort of 5 wound hero type of armies become a more potent, kind of things like Doc that rely on that synergy strategy of 5 wound heroes become more realistic. So here is my question. Techless is 16 wounds on a 4-up save.
Yep.
And that's it, buddy.
Yeah.
Possibly 3-up with Aether Quartz.
Sure, he could Aether Quartz. You're absolutely right. Totally fair. He does have Aether Quartz, so he could 3-up himself in response to something during a phase. But, that's more or less what Alariel is without any kind of... Even she has some kind of weak healing. And we talk about how easy she dies and how she's not worth it.
Right.
Okay? So, my question to you, gentlemen, is this. Is Techless worth it? Is he viable?
Yes, if you build around him. I think he is best in CR, where you can get more Aether Quartz.
Okay.
And that's not just for you, that's for all of your units, getting extra Aether Quartz, but particularly him. I think Zytrek doesn't give him enough because he can't take advantage of the casting and unbinding. No, he can't take advantage of the casting bonuses. I think there's more mileage for him to be in CR. You have to put him in an army that's low drop, especially if you're going to a tournament. Just not talking about just club games or something like that.
And realistically, you could get him into some kind of pretty low drop army, somewhere in the 2 to 4.
Yeah, I believe you can get him into a 2-drop army. Him being the 2nd drop, if you because Auralan Legion is equal amounts of spearmen and archers. There is no cap. It is as long as you have pairs of them plus the Cathalar, you can keep going with that battalion. So you can make a
2-drop with him with the Alaris Temple as well.
Oh yeah, you can too.
Yeah, either of those battalions will allow you to 2-drop him. But you might. I'm saying he could possibly still be in like a 2 to 4 drop because there might be other units you want. And you might want a skirmish unit of Dawn Riders or something to also get in the way. Like there are a couple different options that are out there.
Yeah.
The question is, and by the way, Crazy Horse said he'll be 3 up 1 round. He also has the 5 up ward. Well, that's true
if you don't get to turn it on, which is why we're talking about low drops.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like if you don't get the turn, if somebody out drops you, like if you get out dropped by, I mean, this is if you are high drop in Techless and you get out dropped by KO or something. I don't know how they just don't blow him right the heck off the board.
Oh no, he's done.
Yeah. Like all guns go KO, weapons free into him immediately.
Yes, if KO is in that mix, he's done.
Yeah, and or eels. I think Khorne can do it. I mean, I don't know how. I this was just talking about like this list.
What is Khorne doing to do it? Getting like step 1. All my bloodthirsters run across the board and somehow ignore the massive walls of wardens I've certainly put in the way around Techless. Step 2, a miracle happens. Step 3, profit. Like what's the step 2 here?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. I was just
roll a ton of 6s and just go nuts with mortal wounds explosions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, certainly KO can do it. Seraphon threatened it, obviously.
Eels. I know that's our safe word is eels.
Eels is the safe word. Eels are always the answer because they'll get across the board if they can jump the lines and stuff. Yes, if he's not like truly bubble wrapped in a heck of a bubble wrap, the eels are going to get there, right? That being said, you could just literally surround him with inches of spears.
Yep.
So, sure. But then you have to castle hard. And that's the other thing that I wonder about his viability. The more you include him, the more castling you have to do. And ultimately, this game is about movement out to things.
Yep.
Not about sitting still in a castle. Right?
One thing to note is that Nagash is still the only god wizard who can do arcane bolts. I was surprised that they tried that with him and then they stopped. Like in Bone Reapers, him and Arcan can cast Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield infinite times, which is why like Nagash, like that's one of the things that Nagash can do. It's like he turns into a machine gun, and with all of his pluses to cast, and Techless can't do that. It was interesting to see that he also does not have that ability.
Sure, that he isn't also a living machine gun.
Yes,
that's because he put all his arcane bolts into an arcane bomb that he throws over on their line. Yeah, sure. Any other thoughts on Techless?
I mean, I think he's good. I don't think that for me, like I started with him as the go-to. And then the farther I kind of went down that road of exploration and consideration, the more I realized, I guess I don't really need him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this guy's definitely afraid of, as Fading just mentioned, this guy is afraid of OBR catapults.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, they're a very scary thing to him. Otherwise, I think if OBR don't have the catapults, I think this army matches extremely favorably against OBR. If this army does have if the OBR army did bring like 2 catapults, I think the match flips on its head.
Yep.
It's my honest answer.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Light of Eltharion. He's real good in melee. I'm not going to go through anything else. Like
Mini Gotrek.
Mini Gotrek is the best way I can sum him up. Hits like a tank, fights like a tank, better than a steam tank, cheaper than the steam tank character. Insulting. This guy is insulting to me. Hits harder and is tougher than a steam tank by far. And is the best hero that nobody is going to play.
Well, I mean, like that's what you want out of your hero characters, right? Especially like those really hard to balance sort of just like melee monsters. Like not only is he like basic melee only, but he's also a named character, so you can't really change his stats or like with like customization. Right. So and he's a character that has been carried over from the old world, so he has that nostalgia value. And so I can understand the struggle with like we have this character that we want to do justice to. How do we write his rules in a way that like allows someone to put him on the table and not have him feel like a lame duck?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say he's the best hero no one's going to take, and I mean I'm being facetious, obviously, partly. He'll show up in armies. But the reason I say it's not because he's bad. I actually think he's freaking amazing. I just think he doesn't actually have much of a role.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
He
you
just
don't
there's
need him.
nowhere where he clearly fits.
Right. Because if I want melee power, I'll just take like units of wardens and melee stab people down with their mortal wound pikes. And then I also get bodies. Right? He's like, for his cost, he's just not filling a role in the army. He's relatively slow too, by the way, at 6-inch move.
He is, but with the double move, moving 12 is not bad. Like that's one
but are you
thing
gonna
that
use
as
that
many
on him?
Gotrek he can
Like,
do.
Sure, that's. But my point is, that's a spell you can cast once. He's going to be your target for that, not your brick of 30 wardens, not your unit of 10 Dawn Riders. You're telling me this guy gets the double move. There's no universe.
Saying that's an option. Like
sure. In round 4, when everything else is dead, I suppose, if he's still around, yeah, okay.
Like if I need to get him into something, right?
Yeah.
Like, or to pin something, like I don't hate him at a 12-inch move with a charge.
Sure. Yes, he is unique. Somebody asked in the comments, is he unique? Yes, he is.
And like I also don't hate him in the mirror, like because he's actually because he can bump everybody's bravery to 10.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Okay. Again, like, all right. I think he's like the coolest hero that actually doesn't have a functional role. He's the odd man out.
Yep.
In the hero
now,
space.
This would have changed if you could have given him an item. This would have changed if he had a better command ability.
Sure.
This would have changed if he fit into a battalion.
Yes.
All of those things would have made him playable. Like more playable than he is.
Yeah. It's so weird that he's so well constructed. They finally figured out how to make a great melee hero, and he's not going to be part of, I suspect, almost any competitive list.
Right. Yep, that's true.
Irony. Define irony. Okay. Cathalar. This is the lady with the tin, the little bin of smoke rocks. She got smoke rocks.
The Vestal Virgin statue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does Miss Tin of Smoke Rocks do? So at the start of the battle shock, I mean, this is it. This is what she does. Here we go. Get ready. At the start of the battle shock phase, you can pick one friendly Lumineth Realm Lords unit wholly within 18 inches of this model and roll a die. On a 2+, you don't take a battle shock test for that unit. Okay. If that was it, I'd be like, all right, that's cool. She saps away their fear and negative emotions. Neat. In addition, this book, the most common phrase in this book is in addition.
Yeah.
In addition, if any models from that unit were slain during that turn, you can pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of this model that has to take a battle shock test in that phase. If you do so, add the number of models from that friendly unit that were slain during that turn to the modified battle shock roll for that enemy unit. This is such a potent, crazy, powerful ability. Somebody gets into your Sentinels. Sentinels are generally made of paper. Your archers, by the way. And just, like, murders 14 Sentinels. Okay? And your Sentinels strike back or whatever, and you bring one dude down. You get one guy, right, out of the enemy unit. And total Eclipse is up. Okay?
Yep.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, I'm gonna add my 14 onto your 1.
Yep.
You can no longer Inspiring Presence because you don't have the command points for it anymore. Yep. And go ahead and roll that die.
Roll that die.
Roll that bones. What's your bravery there? Oh, you got a good bravery. 7. Oh, okay. So roll a d6 plus 15 and subtract 7. That's how many dudes just died to my archer unit. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, she... it's going to catch some people out. Like, this army is an army of gotchas.
And that stacks with her sapping the Aether Quartz, and she can hand out the bravery debuff to somebody else.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yep.
The War Scroll rule, it's not under War Scroll.
Yep.
I would also point out that she is also weird mini Be'lakor. So we just came off of mini Gotrek, and she is weird mini Be'lakor.
Yep.
Her spell, Darkness of the Soul, She is a wizard because all these, as we mentioned, she is one of the 2 non-unique wizards that'll probably end up being your general.
Yep.
So Darkness of the Soul has casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster invisible to them. Until your next hero phase, roll 2d6 each time that unit makes a normal move, a charge move, shoots, or fights. So not quite everything Be'lakor can do because she can't shut off spellcasting. But she gets most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And make the roll before the action is carried out. If the roll is greater than that unit's bravery characteristic, that unit cannot perform that action in that phase. Pretty awful and worthless against your standard bravery 10 armies. Again, it's like a 9% chance or something that she actually shuts off an ability, or she shuts off one of those actions. Against low bravery armies, because she's going against your bravery characteristic. So Skaven and Gits and most anybody who's like bravery 5, 6, sort of common numbers that you see on a lot of the other armies. Actually incredibly frightening.
Yeah.
Because it means you have about a 50% chance that when you go to fight, you just don't fight.
Yeah. Oof. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a mini Be'lakor.
Mini Be'lakor. But she can do it every round.
Yep.
She can just keep
Yep.
the casting.
Yep.
Yeah, so good stuff there. Dawn Riders, they're cavalry people. They make attacks. They make a lot of attacks with lances that can do mortal wounds and stuff. I mean, what else were you going to say? They charge, they're fast. They're your skirmishy unit. What do you want to talk about with these guys?
They get better versus smaller models, which I really appreciate, because that's what cavalry technically. If you want to talk about adding verisimilitude here and there, Deathly Furrows is a good ability to do that.
Yes, although I hate that they had to split this out. So I will read this out. You're right.
Yeah. The wording on it is poor, but it functions well.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I also want to talk about Power of Heish here. That's a worthwhile thing to talk about because that'll introduce this, which will carry out for the rest of these. So the Dawn Riders are wizards, right? As long as the champion is alive. And the way this is facilitated is the Steed Master, the champion basically, of this unit is a wizard while the unit has 3 or more models. Interesting because armies that can point and click and kill specific models, so Stormcast Stardrakes and Marathi and stuff like that, are gonna be killing your champions toot sweet. Like that is step number 1 is kill the champion because then that unit is no longer a wizard. But at any rate, at the start of Deathly Furrows, at the start of the combat phase, you can say this unit will use its Deathly Furrows ability. If you do so in that phase, you can either add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's melee weapons, but it can only target units that have a wounds characteristic of 1 or 2 and do not have a mount. Okay. Or you can add 2 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's melee weapons, but it can only target a unit that has a wounds characteristic of 1 and do not have a mount. Okay, so clearly they're cavalry meant to go fight infantry. Yes, got it. Check. Understood. All right, so they get a bunch more attacks. And by the way, with their lances, they're normally 1 attack base, so that'll push them to 2 or 3 attacks. So
this also buffs the horses.
It does, yes, absolutely true, yes. But it's really the lance that you're concerned about here, because the lance is like all sun metal weapons. So when we go, all the Venari, Dawn Riders, the Archers, and the Wardens all have sun metal weapons, which say if the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a sun metal lance is 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target, and the attack sequence ends. Do not make a wound or save roll. So it replaces it. And Power of Heish, the spell that they can cast, that all the other Venari units can cast to their wizards, says Power of Heish is a casting value of 6. If successfully cast until your next hero phase, your sun metal weapons trigger off on an unmodified 5 instead of 6. And any number of wizards can attempt to cast Power of Heish every round. So every unit can try to Power of Heish. And probably that would be one of their first things they would do if you think they're going to be in combat.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Tom, you're a big fan of the Cav. You want to defend the Cav here? You want to talk about why you think this is actually the best unit in here?
Yeah, so the reason why I love this unit is because it actually does something that a lot of the other units just don't do, right? And it's that it moves really well, and like a block of 10 of these guys is really going to get in, and if they can get into the right target, and with that mobility, they will be able to. They're going to throw a lot of attacks, like a lot of attacks.
Yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, I think that it's a big win. I think that they really bring something unique, and I would be hard pressed to not at least take one unit of these guys. But that's me.
Sure. I mean, their mobility is really impressive, right? Like they can maneuver where they want to be, and yes, they only want to fight certain targets.
Yep.
And yes, there might be certain armies that like just don't have that many of those targets.
Right. Like piggies.
Sure. Right. Iron Jaws, ogres, right? Are certainly like Sons of Behemoth. You're not going to find anybody who fits that bill, right?
Yeah.
But against a lot of armies, I think they're a pretty valuable piece.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and somebody asked how like how the Cunnin thing on Gordrak would interact with this unit. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know is the answer, because
I would think
is
it's pretty,
a wizard. Like the Steed Master is a wizard, while this unit has 3 or more models.
So it's an interesting thing. Like, so the unit champion, like this is like I don't want to compare it too much to like 40k, but like it's Grey Knights, Brotherhood of Psychers. The unit champion doesn't gain a keyword of wizard.
Right.
The unit champion counts as a wizard,
right,
and gains these benefits so long as this qualification is met. For the purposes of targeting, there is one model in this unit that has a wizard. That is a wizard. Like for Darkfire Demon Rift, like it is you're not getting the bonus of targeting like 20 wardens. It is one High Warden or the Seed Master, etc.
Yeah, the problem is Cunnin, just like I said on the reroll saves thing.
Yeah,
Cunnin isn't attacking a wizard.
Right.
It's attacking a unit that does not have the wizard keyword. So my guess is it doesn't do anything special.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think
maybe
it matters. My suspicion is Gordrak would make paste out of most unit of Dawn Riders. These guys are not very defensive, and
I mean, yes, but like they are carriers of the stones, right?
They got magic rocks, yes,
and so they can go to 3-ups. They can get ward saves just like everybody else. So I mean, like they can pin, right?
Yes, although I would say that their natural role says they don't want to be within that bubble very quite often. Right?
Okay. No, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. Yep.
So
if they get charged, they are not doing damage.
No, I mean that's certainly true. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not, but like that's not their role, right? This is a flanking unit, and that's what it will do.
Right.
Yeah. It'll do what it says on the tin.
Agreed. It's meant to be a fast flanking unit.
Yep.
Okay, we should talk about the Wardens and the Sentinels next. The Wardens, I think, are your sort of straight baseline, like truly the straight baseline of the whole book. This is what everything's balanced around, right?
Yep.
And your Wardens are 10 for 120. You can get a max of 30 in a unit. There are no horde discounts in this army, so cool beans. And for every one of these guys you have, you can treat a unit of Sentinels or the Dawn Riders also as battle line, which means that ironically you're going to have two, if you're not in Ymetrica, you're going to have at least 2 units of Wardens still, because it's 1-to-1, and the second you get the 3rd Warden, you're done with battle line. So like that's the end of that. So there you go. All it's actually doing is meaning that only 2 out of your 3 battle line slots need to be taken up by Wardens, not all 3.
Right.
Outside of Ymetrica. Okay. So Wardens, again, they're magic, or so they're wizards. They're dudes alive. Again, they have the sun metal weapons. When people charge them, they get better, right? So like if the people they're attacking, they have big pikes, and if the people charge them, they're better at fighting them because they get to add 1 to wound rolls for their pikes, and they also improve their rend by 1, which is pretty good. Puts them on 3s, neg 1/1. Like actually, when set to receive a charge, they actually turn into an elite unit.
Yep.
Right, because they become 2 attacks, 3s, neg 1/1, which is the standard elite unit profile. If they're not charged, they're very much not elite because they're 3s, 4s, no rend, 1 damage.
Right. One like it should be noted for the wardens, like they are not like the way that Shining Company is worded. Everybody's talking about being in Shining Company. The way that Shining Company is worded, if you are in Shining Company, you will, if you are in Shining Company, you cannot charge. Period. You can't charge out of Shining Company the way that it's worded.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
you can move to break it that turn and then charge later that turn.
Sorry, I'm sorry. You guys got quiet on me. What was that?
Martin,
Tom?
say your thing again.
Can you? Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, it's like you can break Shining Company in that movement phase, and then charge.
Yes.
You can't run in that turn because you started that turn in Shining Company.
Right.
But you can charge.
Right.
Like there's probably going to be a late game thing where you finally have to stop tanking and get onto a point, and you can just buff that warden unit with either double move, the 5-up ward, or whatever, and just say, I'm done doing the shield wall stuff. I'm going to break Shining Company, and then I'm going to charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's, I think that people are going to be surprised by.
Oh yeah. Like you do have to be careful with how you move your stuff, and if you end that movement phase in formation, you're still in Shining Company. You can't charge.
Right.
Yep. So,
can I just add one thing where it's like I don't understand why certain rules are written?
Go for it.
There's a handful of things, especially in this maybe just the books that I've played through over the years, but they add this stuff where it's like, why is this here? There's a hand grenade the unit champion has. It's once per game thing. Why?
Yeah.
Because nobody's sitting around going, stop that.
Okay.
Right. No,
because like the Vanguard Paladors have it. I think it's intentional. Like there's actual tech for all of the Stormcast Sacrosanct heroes to have those hand grenades because they can actually do much more damage on bigger units. But stuff like this, it's like, so why is this here? Yeah, it just bugs me. Or it's like I especially since it's a once per game thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So Sentinels.
Yeah, well, so the other thing I just want to say about Wardens is these guys actually can be... I want to talk about their tankiness, because you mentioned it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cogs thing here. Okay?
Yeah.
If they can slow down time, like they're a wizard, and if
they can manipulate cogs.
That if they can manipulate cogs and then get their reroll saves, right?
Yep.
Then you're talking about the unit being, basically
-1 to hit if Shining Company.
Yep.
4+ rerolling, possibly 3+ rerolling,
right?
Or 4+ ethereal rerolling.
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then
and rerolling ones of the battalion.
Sure, and even without cogs, they could just be on the 3s rerolling 1s, right? Sure.
Yeah.
Or 4s ethereal rerolling 1s. Yes. And then they could have a 5-up ward, obviously from Teclis if he's around, right? Because he could use his spell.
Or casting the spell on themselves.
Yeah. Sure.
Because remember, because they always have Power of Heish, which is already a useful spell.
Yes.
And they get to pick a spell from the Lore of Heish. If you're in Zytrek, you just get to pick another spell.
Right.
And the more Venari units you have in your army, the more like you can add redundancy with taking the spell multiple times, or just spreading it around with everybody.
Right. So I rate Wardens quite a lot, and I'll tell you why.
Oh yeah.
Because I think that they are slow, right? I mean, they're just a flat 6-inch move guy. It's not super slow. They're not like running around at 4 inches or whatever, but they're slow, but they're really effective, and they don't care. And I love 2 units of Wardens running relatively close to each other, especially in the battalion, as just sort of this mobile hit squad, right, in Shining Company. Because they're going to be able to get hit, absorb most units' attacks in the game with relatively few casualties, and then actually strike back quite hard. And if Power of Heish is on, I mean quite hard. Because each of these dudes has 2 attacks.
Yeah.
Right? And because they've got a 3-inch reach, most of them are going to be fighting, even in a unit of 30. Okay?
Yep.
So, like, let's say in a unit of 30, 20, 25 of them get a fight in most cases, even retaining Shining Company because of their reach, right?
Yep.
So that's 60 to 75 attacks. If Power of Heish is up, that's 20 mortal wounds coming out of that unit. Okay? And then you have the rest of your attacks all hitting on threes, like the remaining the other remaining 33% that aren't mortal wounds, the 3s and 4s, right? Are also wounding on a 3 and neg 1 rending. So they're still converting decently.
Yep.
Right? It's converting over to about another 12 damage on top against a 4-up save ish. Okay? Little less than, but somewhere in that range. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, like, I think these guys are actually the absolute standout to me of the book. Because, oh, and by the way, because I have lightning reflexes, I'll absorb that charge, and then both my warden units are going to smack you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good. Like, they are really good. They have a high potential. They're solid.
Yeah, they can be... Their tankiness is not as attrition-y as the Stone Guard, right? Who can sit there and kind of do it for a long period of time. But it doesn't really matter if they just murder you.
Right.
Because most units in the game can't turn around and on the kickback just absorb 20 mortal wounds without being significantly, depleted by that.
Yeah, and the damage they're going to do can't really be debuffed unless you stop their spell. Because like there's like the unmodified stuff, you're just fishing for those numbers.
Right.
I don't care if I'm -2 to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the difference between hitting on 5s and hitting on 3s actually isn't that big to the damage output of this unit. Right? Yeah. So like go ahead and net me. I don't care. I'm going to kill 20 goblins when I swing back or something like that, right? Probably more than that, but you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Sentinels. Sentinels are the guys with the big bows. They're your classic archers. Also wizards. Also have Power of Heish. They have a 30-inch range with their bows if they want. That puts them on 4s and 4s. No rend 1 damage, but they can do it, and who cares? Because, again, you're fishing for mortals. Yep. They don't need line of sight if they choose this lofted attack. They can just shoot at whatever the heck they want. So you will not be hiding your characters. Take that. There is a spell that can make them reroll all hits, as was mentioned earlier, which means they can fish hard for mortals. So again, they don't care about your neg 1 to hit for targeting your character. Right? Like, and that's what
not
these...
what they're looking for. They're looking for 5s and 6s.
Right. They're looking to crack Power of Heish off, right? And then just say, I pick that 5-wound character. Click, click, boom. He's dead now.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I think we could run into a world where something very unique happens here that we haven't had. I don't know that it's been answered in a FAQ. I'd have to go back and check. But there's a real world where they may need 6s to hit, but they may trigger mortals on 5s.
Oh, like what happens when those two things happen?
Right. Because like with the spell up, it would say on an unmodified hit roll for an attack roll made for an Orlon bow with 5 or 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target and the attack sequence ends. Like they could miss and still trigger a mortal potentially.
I believe they did answer that in FAQ somewhere, that you still have to actually hit if your number falls below that. Because I think it got answered with something
I don't know.
Previously. Yeah.
And I would have to see. I don't know. But it's really...
It would probably just be updated and addressed again in the GHB3 FAQ.
Sure.
I mean, it needs to...
Or whatever number this is.
Yeah. 5.
Yep.
5?
It is. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
There we go.
Crazy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so these guys are little assassins. Little crazy arrow assassins. They do
some work.
They will do some work. They will shoot you dead.
They don't need line of sight, so they can avoid all those abilities that like normally let you ignore, or like the
They're gonna fire over palisades. They're gonna fire over your wall with the Fire Slayer wall. Yep.
All of those things. Yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see where it ends.
Sure. I think this unit is a good example of the internal balance. In that, like, I see people, like, I heard one list where it's like, how many Sentinels can I put in an army? And it's like, I think there are immediate diminishing returns
Sure.
in just spamming Sentinels because of that dynamic of the Wardens having 2 attacks versus the Sentinels 1. And you're always for every unit of Sentinels you're losing 1 because all of the officers in each of these units do not have the main Sun Metal weapon.
Right.
So it's like, and you don't have the bow, so it's like it's not 10 shots, it's 9 shots, and if you extrapolate that out to however many Sentinels you would want to bring, it is just, excuse me, the like say it's 4 units, it's like that's only 36 shots versus the 40, and I can't imagine building a list with more than 30. I think these guys are better as sniper rifles rather than like your the classic volley fire archers like in Lord of the Rings or even old school High Aelves.
I tend to agree. I could see 40 in a list, but that's pushing it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
no, I agree.
I see
Because
40
these guys,
on the list, but I agree. That is pushing it.
yeah, these guys are made of paper. I mean, if they get touched, they will evaporate.
Yep.
They're a bunch
Yep.
of dum-dums on a 5-up save, like with
Yep.
1 wound each. They will just, they will
Yep.
blow away if things get into them. And yes, they could burn their quartz for a +1
Yep.
save, but that's not going to save them.
That's not going to end well.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk about the Alarith stuff. We talked about
Sure.
the Stone Mage a little earlier. He's a 5 wound dude with a 5-up save. He's the guy who will probably often be your general. He's a little caster. Okay. Yep. He has a spell. He is a wizard. He will whap people often, sometimes in Emetrica with his little power stick. He also
He
has
has
a
to-
half move spell.
He has to turn on his own fly ability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Poor guy.
But there you go. He's Alarith. Technically, he can tectonic force people. So
Yep.
there you go. He's got that, and he is immune to Ren Neg 1 or Ren Neg 2 if he's in Emetrica. So there you go. But let's talk about the real action here. It's not the Stone Mage. It's not Mr. Zen Garden.
Yeah.
It's the Stone Guard and the Cow Mountains. That's what we need to be on about. Stone Guard, 5 for 100 points, 2 wounds, 4-up save. These are the dudes that can be immune to Ren 2 in a unit. They have their little picks or hammers, which are going to be on 2 attacks, 3s, neg 1, 1 damage, so your standard elite unit profile. We've got multi-wound elves, right? And, you can pick to either have the diamond pick hammers, which can deal mortal wounds, or they can have the
Stone mallets.
the stone mallet, which is if you roll a 6, you add 1 to the damage inflicted in the attack when the attack is successful. I would be picking the diamond pick every time, only because 1, it's always good to have another source of mortals, and 2, because then I don't have to actually go. Okay, I have 5 2 damage hits, and 7 1 damage hits, and people.
Yeah, do you want to be Graveguard or do you want to do mortal wounds?
Yeah, like I hate any unit that adds to damage on a 6 because then I have to split up my save. Like, then I make my enemies split up their saves and wait. How many? Hold on. How many did I have where you had 2 damage? What was it? Okay, got it. Cool. Slow the game down more. Got it. No, thank you.
Ugh.
It's also better to have diamond pick hammers if you're going Emetrica and you have mostly Stone Guard, because then you'll be without those Venari Sun Metal weapons.
Right.
So it's like then you're starting at 0 and trying to add back in those mortal wound weapons.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I like these guys. They're tough. They can be very grindy, and they can hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty good. I think they're again. I feel all of the units in here are well balanced. Actually, like I think
would agree
all
with that.
4 of the main units. I look at them and go, yes, those have value. Those have a role. I can see using those. And none of them really jumps out to me over the others. Besides the battle line unit, which I go, yeah, I'd want that in every army that I think. But that's probably not that weird. I suppose that your main core unit is actually appealing. It's actually a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 big mountain boys. Them mountain boys better learn to fly or start flapping their arms real hard. All right, so
Walking Zen Gardens.
yes, so the Spirit of the Mountain is the non-named one. 12 wounds, 3-up save, 6-inch move. He is Alarith, so he can do tectonic force, and he reduces rend and all that kind of stuff. If he's near a Stone Mage, he always treats his damage on his damage table as being at 0 wounds, which is cool. which means he deals 5 damage with his big world hammer.
Mhm.
This guy is a big hammer. This is how monsters should be dealing damage, by the by. We finally figured this part out. Because he makes 4 a base. He makes 4 attacks, 3s, 2s, -2 rend, 5 damage. Now that's a profile I can get behind.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that big monsters should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that's actually scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has a cool ability called Ponderous Advice that I'm not sure it actually has much value, but it's still neat. Because not actually a lot of command abilities in this army. It's actually very Doc in that way.
It lets you do more reroll ones to hit.
Right. Yes, exactly. At the end of your hero phase, you can pick one friendly Lumineth Realm Lords elf hero within 3 inches of this model. If that Lumineth Realm Lords elf hero is within 3 inches of this model at the start of your next hero phase, the whole turn, the whole time, then that Lumineth Realm Lords elf hero can use a command ability in that turn without spending any command points.
Yep.
Kind of a neat ability, but yes, I agree. It's just going to be more reroll ones to hit in certain phases.
Mm-hmm.
He can do a little shockwave that basically can give people -1 to hit, which is pretty cool. Because obviously, what's nice about that is if he's near. I actually like this dude hanging out with Venari, wardens in a Shining Company, and doing his stompy stomp, because then those wardens are -2 to be hit.
Yep.
When they're in Shining Company, and oh lordy,
Oh yes.
now they're getting real defensive.
And if you're cooking with Geminids,
sure. Why not slap on the whole neg 3 thing? Then them wardens are going to stick around forever. Yes, I mean it's just that
forever.
So that's cool. And this guy has a command ability. I don't know
Yeah.
how. He's not a hero.
Don't understand. Yeah.
I guess we just decided that core rule doesn't matter. So,
No. That's not a thing. Like, as it's written, what this means is that like this command ability can be used if you have a hero on the battlefield at all. Like, because that's the way that it's worded in the core rules. A command ability can be used if there's a hero on the battlefield.
Yes. Well.
So this is meant if you have both this and Avalanor, you're making Stoneguard +2 attacks. Oh no, you can't because you can't stack it.
No, you can't stack them. Yeah, this is called Faith of the Mountains, and it can give +1 attack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So you can just spread out that +1 to hit.
Yeah. This raises a lot of questions. What this smacks to me is that like changes were made last minute that weren't like fully integrated into the rest of the book.
Sure.
That's what this says to me.
It's a weird thing that the non-hero has maybe the most useful command ability.
We've never had a non-hero have a, how do I want to say this? We've never had a non-hero have a command ability.
Yeah. Right.
But Avalanor's is just better.
Sure, but I mean, he's the named character, right? So, and he actually is a hero. So, yes, the other version of this guy is obviously Avalanor, which is the named Cow King, Mountain, Zen Garden. And so that's Avalanor, the Stoneheart King. Same thing, 6-inch move, but he's got 14 wounds, 3-up save. His hammers are different. He has more attacks, 6 attacks. He's 3-up, only -1 rend, but he does still do 5 damage. So, still hits.
That -1 rend, kind of a big deal.
It is a big shift, but, he does have 2 more attacks at the same time, but he's 1 worse to wound. He still puts out damage. Like, anytime you get damage 5.
Yep.
And they both add +1 to their attacks if this is not a turn they charge.
Yeah. Yep. So, like, and he has a better...
Oh, and he does mortal wounds in addition.
Yes. He has a better version of the command ability where he can pick D3 Alarith elf units wholly within 24 inches, as opposed to the other guy, like the base version, just picks 1 within 18. So not only does he pick potentially more units in D3 over 1, but he also bubbles out farther. And I honestly don't think he's a misprint. I think he's just not a hero, and he just has this command ability, and he can only use it if there's another hero around. But
it's like a phoenix. It's like they needed a generic monster that's
Well,
also has good synergies for units. I think is what it's supposed to be.
yeah, I don't know. I wish that he had, like, if he was a hero, he could actually carry an item. You know, like one of those melee
Sure.
items.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but then this model would be leading an army, and I don't
Okay.
I
think they
see
wanted
no
that.
issues with that whatsoever.
Yeah, like, okay, it's leading an army, rather than the random wizard in the backfield.
Sure.
I think that's exactly the intention. They didn't want this model leading an army. They wanted
Yeah.
the wizards to be the generals.
Sure.
I would love, love a like behind the scenes story of the making of this book, and to know if that guy was ever a hero.
We'd have to go to an open day for that, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Just hey,
Yep.
next time we have an open day, I know what question I'm asking. I'm asking the designers.
Get in line.
All right. Tell me what happened. Well, Martin, maybe you and I will be over in the UK at the same time next year once all this is over.
Yes.
But you know, tell me what happened with the Cow Mountains. Was the
Right.
generic one ever a hero? Walk me
Right.
through the development process. I want to know what happened with this guy.
Mhm.
I need like a DVD commentary.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. And that's pretty much the army. I mean, they have some endless spells too. The Twin Stone's the one you're going to see the most often because it more or less can just always sit around and add +1 to cast with potential.
That it would be interesting if they changed that because like the way the way it works right now is that it's a battery
Yes.
and that you can without changing the dice, like the little dice token. Can I just keep manipulating the twin stones to get +1? Would be interesting if they said no. The minimum you can get is +2 with a ceiling of 6.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Because as it stands right now, it doesn't really matter if it actually does its thing. You're literally just jumping it
It's
out
perma
there
+1.
to get a perma +1. Yes. And I mean, it's not that expensive. We're talking about 30 points for that endless spell.
Right? Yeah.
So.
I would say that's the only thing in this book I think which is undercosted.
Yeah.
Which is hard to say with the army that's already like expensive and like really struggling to fit as much bodies as it is. But I think you should be paying more than 30 points for this.
Yeah, I mean, I regularly had 70 points to put for endless spells in my build. Like, and so the question was always what? And this is always a top contender when you have an army of wizards.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Soren asked, "Can the unit champion of the Wardens and Sentinels cast the Sanctum of Aminatak and the spell
Amentak.
and be in Shining Company?" Like technically, yes, they can cast the endless spell. I mean, they are wizards and can cast it. The issue is going to be all the tips have to touch on the
Yep.
Sanctum.
And how large of a unit can you actually get in there?
Yeah, not very, because it's not actually a huge amount of space. It's literally like that, and you know you're not really going to get a unit in there. I don't even think you could get a unit of 10 foot wardens.
Oh, I think you can probably get a 10er. I don't think you will get more than 10.
Not having it in front of me right now, it'd be hard to tell.
Right.
But you can, like, the base of the Twin Stones, we saw it next to models. It's not very big.
It's on the page. I believe the base size for the twin stone is 50 mil.
Yeah.
And like the sanctum is right next to it. I think you can maybe get like maybe the 5 Dawn Riders can fit all their bases in there. Maybe. So that's not like I don't think that's a unit of 10 spearmen can fit in that.
Yeah.
Well, then like I don't know who can cast it then, right?
Cathalar, Stone Mage.
Yeah,
that's
the
it.
Cathalar and the Stone Mage. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they're going to set up and be in their sanctum. I mean, clearly Teclis can't because he can't fit in the.
Right.
The tips ain't touching
clearly
around
can't.
Teclis.
Right. He clearly can't. There's no question about that.
No, Teclis doesn't touch tips. There's just no way. So, he's too big. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Anything else we want to say about this force? I mean, overall, I think it's cool. Like I said, I actually think that it's a well-designed book. There is some areas of NPE. There is some FAQs we need.
Mm-hmm.
I repeat the same thing I've repeated in every time I've talked about design for forever and ever and ever, which is just please institute a formal development team that'll catch this kind of stuff so we don't have these questions and these issues come up. It's really easy. There's a process. Follow it. Hire a person. You're doing very well as a company. Hire Tom. Or don't. Find somebody who's like Tom.
Yeah, find somebody who's like, you don't want me.
Also, the principle of them hiring Tom would be the funniest thing in the universe to me. But anyways, but that being said, I think this is absolutely a success of a book. It's versatile.
Yeah.
The units seem competitive with each other.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, the heroes are weird, and I agree with you, Tom, that it does feel like there's holes, right?
Yeah.
Like, in the nature of the leadership, in the nature of kind of the overall army. But,
I wonder if it was like it was designed as a whole and then split.
I do not believe so.
I
They
don't
usually
know.
don't work that way.
I know they don't. But it makes me wonder. That's what I'm gonna say.
I would call that future proofing, because that's what we
Yeah,
want, right?
I
Like
think they just had the conception.
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's clearly thematic like
Sure.
threads that they intend to pull on, like for future releases.
Yep.
2023, 2024, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, we'll see the Lumineth Part 2.
I do have one question for you, Vince,
I'm
and
ready,
I
man.
apologize if it requires more unpacking than we have for the conclusion. But when you were going over some stuff with Rob in the AO in his AOS show, the first one, when you just talked about Lumineth and passing, it's like, so what design elements would you point to, just like in summary, that for Lumineth artificially or unnecessarily raise the skill requirement to pilot?
The use of the Aether Quartz, more of these resources that you've gotta burn and track,
Yep.
right? Because that stuff people will forget or use incorrectly. Like, it does raise the skill floor. Period. And I'm not sure we need these. I know some people have been like, man, I love these extra resources, and I'm like, I really don't. We've got plenty of crap to track.
I think it's we especially since more factions keep getting their own.
Well, and here's
And
what
they
I'll
don't.
say: watching Tom with Aether Gold, Tom is a great player and has a very sharp memory. And multiple times over the weekend when Tom and I played a bunch of games, he was like, "Did I spend my Aether Gold on this unit?" So, like, number one, get yourself game aids, get yourself some tokens, and put them next to the unit, right?
Yep.
Because you will forget. You'll use your quartz in round one, and round three will come around, and you've made hundreds of decisions since then, and you will literally just forget. So, have a little token, put it next to the unit. Okay, number one. That kind of stuff, I think, raises it, makes it more complex. Okay, the nature of the way the army interacts, it can fall apart like a house of cards if you don't use your stuff correctly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, a lot of stuff in this army is actually quite squishy. And if, like, we've talked about how tough it can be, that's in the hands of sort of a pilot that's going to understand exactly how to mobilize and use these pieces correctly. Right?
Yep.
You get your Dawn Riders caught flat-footed. You expose your Sentinels and they just get charged. You don't protect Techless properly. Right? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could pick 100 scenarios that somebody who doesn't pilot this at sort of the... Again, I'm not saying it's an impossible army to play. You asked, what raises the skill floor? That kind of thing raises the skill floor. Right? When it rides on sort of a knife edge of, like, you make a wrong move, you lose a unit for nothing.
Yep.
That's a higher skill floor.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing, just a thing. There's no way I would recommend somebody just starting out in AOS to use this army.
Mm-hmm.
Tectonic Force, madness. Shining Company, madness. Okay.
Yeah, movement trays are back for this army only.
Sure.
Well, only some movement trays, like Element Games.
Specific, it has to be the non...
Sure. I'm just saying, like, in general, like, the idea of this army of all armies having some extra real old school, like, I don't want to just use a blanket term like nostalgia mechanics, but it's like there are clear intentions at the top end of this book, like the allegiance abilities, to make it feel like old school Warhammer.
Sure.
Yep.
Oh, also, another thing, by the way, Martin. The fact that you might have, like, 11 or 12 casts in a turn. You might have, like, 16 or 20 spells you're deciding between.
I have access to 17 spells in my current Zytrek list, including endless spells.
Yeah, that's a high skill floor. Right there, instantly. Because you've got to navigate, like, a whole lot of garbage and be like, wait, which one out of this... Like, it's like you're literally a wizard flipping through a spellbook trying to figure out which spell to rip off.
Yes.
Right?
And you only get 6 casts, so it's like you have to choose wisely.
Right. Yeah. So yes, I think that kind of stuff absolutely raises the skill floor, 100%. Right. Yeah, I would not recommend this to a new player. No way, no how. This is not a good first army. This is a bad first army. Very bad. Okay.
Mhm.
Don't start here unless you look at this and you've fallen in love with it. Like
Yeah.
as always, aesthetic wins over everything, right? So if somebody
Yep.
just like asked me in the raw and said, I'm not attracted to anything, all else being equal, this is a bad starter army.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, if they came to me and was like, I love this army, I love its aesthetic, it's exactly what I want, I'm deeply in love with old high elves, I'd be like, okay, go ahead, just understand you're gonna have to like, learn. Like really, you have to put some time into this one. It's not a low bar, right? Otherwise, you're gonna have some bad time. This army is the army of pizzaing when you should have French fried. So
Yeah.
just know that.
Yep.
That does not make it a bad army. Just let's just really really hammer that home.
Yeah.
It does not at all. So okay, cool. All right, gentlemen. So all in all, I say positive, right? Great stuff. Good book.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we can't wait to see LRL 2. Tyrion
Yes.
Boogaloo.
The sunflowers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Tyrion First Blood Part 2. He's back, and this time he's got an even bigger sword of Cain or something.
Yes, and blind.
Sure. Man, I hope when they make his model, he's like actually big. Like these the size of like Teclis and all the Elvish gods are large.
They're 54 mil.
Yeah.
Cata-
I want
Catacur-
him to be the same size and like just a blind dude and kind of just like some robes. It looks so sweet. The giant sword. Amazing.
Yeah, but he'll probably have a big companion too, with like a porcelain mask that is like bizarre nameless pseudo sphinx creature.
They
Don't say
cannot both have weird friends.
No, like
Probably
he just needs to have a horse.
Sure, I'll take a horse, but it has to be a 6-legged.
Don't
Giant
die. I knew you were gonna
horse.
say that, like a 6 or 8-legged horse. No,
6-legged
Just-
horses are classic mythology.
a horse. How about just a horse?
It'll be a 6-legged horse.
Not
It'll
like
be a horse and a
millipede.
160 millimeter base.
There you go.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
No, it'll be big enough to comfortably fit on a 160 millimeter
Sure.
base.
Nah, just put him on like a 120, like a chariot base him on a giant horse, or 105. I'd take it. All right. Anyway, at any rate, gentlemen, let's shut this down. For all of you out there, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review and the discussion. As always, but if you did enjoy it, hey, you know what? Just move that mouse over just that much. Just go here to here. Click, give it a like. It's just that easy. Clicking like is so simple and so fun. You'll be happy you did, and it really helps other people find the show, find the channel and things like that. And I very much appreciate that. Martin, thank you very much, brother. Great to have you on.
Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. We'll of course have Martin back, and it will be sometime before Teclis comes out. Don't worry. But beyond that, all of you out there, thank you so much for watching. Next week is going to be the GHB, so come back for that. We've got a mega show planned for the GHB. It's going to be a good time. But as always, I thank you very much for watching this time, and we'll see you next Wednesday. My mouse broke.
Uh-oh.
Nope, it's fine. It's working. Bye, everyone.